Hey everyone, I have two guests with me today, and they are Adam and Mitch. And we are going to be talking about a cult that I have never talked about on this channel before. So it's referred to as Whimscog, and they are based out of South Korea, but they are very alive and well in the United States. And while all cults are troubling to me, what I find particularly troubling is the fact that they recruit actively on college campuses here in the US. So the goal today is to educate the audience about this cult. And I'm going to start with you, Adam, just to briefly describe what is Whimscog, what does it stand for, and what do they believe?
Yeah, first off, thank you for Vanessa for having us even on here and giving us a platform to speak about this. And thank you for the work that you do, first off.
Thank you.
So, this kind of leads into my story a little bit. So, my wife, when she was 18, so, just barely out of high school, she was going to a Salt Lake Community College here in Utah. It's just this little community college. And she ran into this organization. And, this organization, they are very heavily recruiting on college campuses. They have what they call clubs, and they're all over the college grounds, whether that be trying to promote their volunteer services or the Bible study club or whatever the case is. So this is actually how my wife got involved at the time, was through their college outreach and their college preaching. Now, what does this organization believe in? Well, it's pretty different than I'm sure anyone would expect, but the Whimscog, if you ask them, and I'll tell what they believe from their perspective. So they believe that they were established by Second Coming Jesus, whose name is An Sang Hong, who was born in 1918, who was baptized in 1948, and who passed away in 1985. They think that he is the Second Coming Jesus. He is the Elijah who is to come before the last day. He is the angel from the east in Revelation 7. That's to seal God's people. And so they pray to him. They preach in his name. They baptize in his name. And you would think at that point, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of weird, right? But it gets a little weirder. So they also believe that there is a God the Mother who is this 83-year-old woman in South Korea.
She's
right
still
now.
alive today?
She's still alive, yeah. And people actually go from all over the world to come see her, to come to what they call the New Jerusalem Temple, which is this massive, elaborate, really beautiful building, to be frank.
Wow.
And so they fly all over the world to her to be with her and to spend time with her. And she's basically the mascot, I would say, because, they promote her as God the Mother, right? And they used to say that, because they believe in the 144,000, they're like God's anointed, similar to Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
But they used to teach that the 144,000 were going to ascend alive with this God the Mother, this woman in Korea. But now they're starting to walk that back because she's getting older, and clearly they know time is short with this lady. And so they believe that she is God in the flesh. She is the Jerusalem in Revelation that has come down. She is the prophetical Sarah. She is the bride. She is, God in the flesh. The female image of God is what they would say, because they believe basically there's two gods. There's a God the Father, and then there's a God the Mother.
This sounds a lot like the Moonies.
It's basically a ripoff. I mean, if I could describe it, it's like if you took the Jehovah's Witnesses, the LDS, the Unification Church, and they all had a baby.
Wow.
That would be, and Seventh-day Adventists, actually. If you took all four of those and you created this Frankenstein of a religion, that's the Whimscog. Because the backbone of it is Seventh-day Adventists. In fact, their second coming Christ was a Seventh-day Adventist for many years before he established this church in 1964. But even that's not really the full truth, because after he passed away in 1985, which was suddenly, they weren't expecting him to pass away. In fact, he was supposed to ascend alive with the 144,000. So you kind of see this pattern of, hey, he's supposed to ascend alive with these people. Oops, he died. Bury it.
Wow.
And now they're starting to work that into the theology now with the whole mother thing. But after he passed away, the church actually broke off into different sects as well. So it's not just the Whimscog. There's the New Covenant Passover Church of God. There's the Church of God, Jesus Witnesses. And now there's a fourth one that just broke off. It's called what is it called, Mitch?
That one's the New Jerusalem Church of God.
Yeah, so there's 4 that claim authenticity from this one Korean man. But I would say, as far as being a problem, as far as being the most active and the most dangerous, I would say Whimscog, because they're the biggest and they spread like wildfire. So that's why we're talking about that one today in particular.
Yeah. What does Whimscog stand for? It's WMSCOG. And I've got it on the thumbnail so that people can see that. And it's Mother of God. So what does that stand for?
So it's World Mission Society Church of God.
Why do they have these long names? The Korean ones. That
wasn't their original name. Their original name was wasn't it Ansang Witnesses Church of God? Yeah,
Witnesses of Ansang.
But then after 1999, because they used to teach that 1999 was the end of the world, like Y2K. And then after that, they went through a rebranding, and then later became World Mission Society Church of God. And then they've changed their logos a couple of times, because I think, after you have so many failed prophecies, so many failed doomsday prophecies specifically, I think after that point, they just rebrand, because there's that stigma that's attached to the other branding. And so they try to move it and try to have like a fresh start and be like, oh, we don't know about that. We don't know who that was. This is us,
Right. We're going to get into your experiences, what I want to do. But before that, do they have a focus on like end time theology? Like a lot of cults do? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Every day they believe could be the last. Okay. Right. And they have this saying where it's like, because they believe Ansang Hong, like this Korean man, is going to come back and destroy the world. Very similar to what Jehovah's Witnesses teach and preach. It's very doomsday centered, where it's a works-based salvation too, which makes it even worse, because you're constantly like, am I enough? Did I do enough? And the goalpost, even if you feel like you do enough, the goalpost just keeps moving anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So if you felt secure the day before, well, today you might not feel that way, because it's all, where are you at in your works? And it's a very depressing, very vicious cycle where you never know where you stand with this God. And when it comes to, holidays, for an example, we're forbidden from keeping any sort of holidays, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, which I'm not saying you have to, right? Like, you're free in Christ to do whatever. But
they discourage you from that? Or
they forbid it, not discourage. Like, if you do it, you will go to hell. Everything is on the threat of hell with this place. Right. You don't pay your tithe, threat of hell. Right. You don't keep the Passover. And one of their main things, I forgot this, but one of their main things of what they teach is the Passover.
Right.
And what is the Passover, you might say? Well, it was actually this Wednesday, April 1st. But the Passover is basically a bread and wine ceremony with feet washing. And their whole thing is like, you have to do it in accordance with the Jews, right? Like the same day, same time as the Jews. And so you're like, well, what's the big deal? Honestly, scripturally, there is not a big deal, but to them, it's a matter of heaven and hell doing the bread and wine at their specific time with the feet washing. If you don't do it,
you're in that group. I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you're in that group and it's Sabbath and say you can't do it on that time, are they telling you that you could go to hell because you didn't do it on that time frame?
Yeah, if you miss the Sabbath, you're going to hell, right? Everything is on the threat of hell. Everything is, if you don't keep the Sabbath, like, well, God said, cursed is the man who desecrates the Sabbath. So what are you? You're cursed, right? If you don't tithe, you're cursed. You don't keep the Passover, you're going to be destroyed. Like, it's all about fear. It's all about, doomsday. You're going to go to hell. You're going to be destroyed. Right. And so they're very legalistic. So they keep like this weird, they call it the New Covenant feast, the New Covenant law. But basically it's just a very Christianized, and I would say Koreanized, old covenant law, because, they have like a Korean twist to it. They're praying to a Korean God. And after every service, we would pray out loud in Korean. We'd be like, Hanare Keshin Napaji Ansangunim Abaji Keso Kanima Shinaren Bakaya Sawana. We'd pray in Korean. no one knows what we're saying, right? I have
Right.
no idea what I'm saying, but I just know that we memorize that prayer. It's in Korean, and it's giving deification to this unsung home character. And so it's a very weird flavor of Christianity and Judaism and shamanism and all just meshed into one.
Okay. Well, I want to give Mitch a moment. So what I'm going to do is just, Mitch, how did you get in there? And then we're going to go back to you, Adam, on how you got in there and your experience. So Mitch.
Yeah.
And
So
just, I'm sorry, you guys. I
Go
just
ahead.
want to say this too. So obviously, Adam, you have a channel. It's called Finding the Alternative. It's on YouTube, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to link that. And then Mitch, yours is called
Cult Audit.
Cult Audit, right? Okay, Cult Audit. And I'm going to link that as well. Okay. So Mitch, tell us, how did you find this, or how did this cult find you? What happened?
Yeah. Really quickly before I start this, and just want to really emphasize to people that are watching this how dangerous this group is. In America, the only Korean cult many people know of is the Moonies, because it was very prevalent in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. But this group is much larger than the Moonies now. The Moonies have died out. They took the playbook of the Moonies and they saw all the mistakes the Moonies did. And this group is growing much faster. It took the LDS Church over a century to even hit 4 million. They're around like 7 to 18 million now. But this church did it within like 35 years. So people don't understand the expansion of the World Messiah Church of God. It's just not a 2-year mission like the LDS Church might do. It's not just once or twice a week that the Jehovah's Witnesses are going out and preaching. This group is every single day. Members are required to preach every day at your work, when you go shopping, and then when you're done with work, you need to be at the church. You need to go preaching on the campuses. It's growing rapidly across the globe, especially since 1997 when they started their global expansion. They're in 175 countries now with over 8,000 churches worldwide. This is since 1997 when they left Korea to spread across the globe. So it's massive. But beginning with my story, when I was in the U.S. Navy, I got done with 2 years in Japan. Our ship floated back to San Diego, California. I was there a couple, maybe a year at this point, and I guess they came and preached on the military bases, because there's a lot of military members as well in the World Messiah Church of God. And they preach also on the military bases a lot. And one of my friends was getting preached to outside the military barracks, who really wasn't paying attention, but he decided to go, and I said I'd go with him. Um, some of the doctrine was very similar when I first went there, because my family grew up Seventh-day Adventists. So I heard about the Sabbath day and the Daniel and Revelation prophecies. So it seemed like a fine place to me, because my family seemed normal and seems like they're teaching similar things. But of course, later on, they tell me about the second coming Christ, all this. But at this point, it was a lot of love bombing, especially just getting back from Japan. A lot of us like separated, my military friends. So I was really looking for community at this time. Very busy working on like private pilot license and like other stuff. Really didn't have a community. I finally go to this church. Seems like a good community. Everybody's loving. Everybody's nice. I started to get really into the Bible. I was baptized, and then I never stopped. I never missed a service since the day I was baptized in San Diego and got sent to Oklahoma. So that's kind of the beginning, I would say, of my story and how I was introduced into the church.
Wow. Okay. So what year was that? All
That
right.
was very beginning, January of 2019.
Not that long ago. And when did you get out?
Good question. There's not like a specific date. I
Okay.
was kind of a higher up leader in America. And I was in an arranged marriage, and also they forced my separation of my wife recently as well. But it was like a 2-year escape from 2024 when I started to doubt, and I was in Oklahoma. They really tied the leadership down there because I lived at the actual church facility. Um, yeah, it took about 2 years. My wife would never really listen, but I finally got us back to Colorado. I was able to finally step down from my position, and I was just kind of like barely keeping the faith, which is they do not like, but barely keeping the faith, living pretty far from the church. And then eventually I just told my wife, I'm completely, done with the church. I don't remember, but it had to have been before fall of last year. But I was already mentally out for a good 2 years, I would say. But working as a leader, which was difficult. There's so much more to my story you're going to be really surprised at, but that's kind of, I would
Right.
say, the gist of it, me leaving.
Okay, let's do this because you mentioned the arranged marriage that you had, and I know that that's one aspect. So briefly tell us about that, Mitch. And
Yeah.
we all talk that, if we need to do a second part because there's just so much to this, we will do that. So don't feel like you have to be rushed.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, tell us about that.
Basically, after really quickly to kind of speed it up towards that, I mean, because not just everybody gets in an arranged marriage in the church. Usually you have to be in some leadership form to be in an arranged marriage for the most part. Adam could probably agree to this. But usually to get married to a Korean, which I was married to, you probably have to be pastoral staff. And pastoral staff is kind of like the higher ranking leadership with inside the church. There's two positions in it, either an overseer or you're the assistant overseer. This is pastoral staff. So I leave San Diego. I get sent to Oklahoma for my new military station, and I work my way up in the ranks. Eventually, go through the theological school. I'm about to become pastoral staff, and I need to be married. So what they did is they sent a Korean out from Korea. She didn't even know who I was. I at least got to see a picture of her before she was sent out. But when she came here, she told me later on she never even saw a photo of me. She only got my name. So we were put together, and within about 2 months, we were married. Moved into the church, and then started working full time at the World Mission Society Church of God. So that's kind of how I got into my arranged marriages. But when it comes to the arranged marriages, they're put together in different ways. You'll see through some overseers in some churches that it's just like in one day, you together. There's other ones where it's like, oh, like, hey, you guys get a date for 2 weeks, and then you can choose. This is in quotation, choose if you want to be together or not. Some people get about maybe 2 months to date before they're put together. But when I say quotations choose, you really don't got a choice. They make it seem like you have a choice, but you don't, in the sense of this. They tell you God put these marriages together, right? Mother God, she arranged it. She thinks you guys are going to be the perfect couple together. So even though they say you have a choice, you really don't, because if you say no, you're saying your judgment is better than God's. But honestly, I think our judgment would have been better than this God, because this God that arranged our marriages, she already had a divorce. She divorced her husband as well. So this is a person that's arranging our marriages, right? But they don't tell you that in the church, by the way. They never tell you she got a divorce or anything like that. But
They keep that a secret.
yes.
You said marriages. Did you have more than one arranged marriage?
I didn't, but there's many people who have,
Okay.
where, especially if you stay in as a leader, especially in my position that I was, because we run the churches, pastoral staff, like operate them and run them. If your wife leaves you, I mean, they won't, you have to get arranged to another woman, because you have to the church has to function. Your wife needs to cook for the members, so on and so forth. So, yeah, many people have been in multiple arranged marriages. Mine was just the one, and she like just got up and left one day. Like I literally blocked me, got up and left. So,
How long into the marriage did she do that?
about 3 years. She was in the middle of getting her green card too. So there's a lot of speculation, which has happened before, that um, the church was completely behind it. Even when we were in Korea meeting God the Mother, because I was like doubting towards like they sent me to Korea because I was doubting as a leader to meet God, their God. When I was there, they had her like spy on my phone, to see who I was talking to, the ex-members and stuff. And then as soon as we come back and I step down and we're in Colorado, as soon as I officially like left the church, we were still together, but very soon after that, I already knew what was going to happen, because it's happened to probably hundreds at this point of members. If you were a leader and you left, they will usually force the other person to get a divorce behind your back, or like to separate behind your back or spy on you behind your back, because
Right.
my wife got her own bank account after I left. She really was not trying to help with bills at all. No wifely duties, like no hugging, kissing, or marital stuff pretty much after that. And I even confronted her, said, I know you're going to leave me. And I said, can I see your phone to see who you're talking to? She spied on my phone in Korea. She wouldn't let me see her phone to see who she was talking to. And anytime I was trying to talk to church leadership after I left, they wouldn't talk to me. They would see that I was trying to text them or call them. They would not respond to me, but they would call my wife and have my wife come and sit with me and talk to me. Or they would always bring my wife into it. And the church did something pretty dirty to me recently. I'm going through civil court actually right now because they have no evidence for any of it. But the church, to make me look bad as a like leader that left, they put a protection order against me in the church, to make me seem like I'm a dangerous guy or something
Okay.
like that, which isn't true. This is very common for the church to make the person that left look bad.
Right.
That it wasn't the church's fault. See, she had to leave because her husband was abusive or something like that, which is not true. These are false allegations completely. But this is the tactics the World Messiah Church of God uses in order so when leaders leave, they can really tell people to shun him, don't talk to him. He's evil, he's demon possessed. So that's what I'm going through right now, currently.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. But thank you for sharing that, Mitch. If I can go back to you, Adam, because you were telling us about your wife, how she was at the community college and essentially was she recruited there?
Yeah, and so a lot of times they have two ways of trying to do it, and I'll kind of explain briefly, and Mitch can chime in if he wants to. But sometimes what we would do is when we would go to college campuses, we would dress up as if we were students, right? Typically, when we preach, we wear like slacks and button-down shirts, and like we dress nice, not like Jehovah's Witness or LDS nice, but just like a step, like a tier down, I guess, if you'd say.
Business
But
casual.
yeah, business casual. And so we would wear backpacks, we would wear, just regular t-shirts and sneakers and jeans and go and pretend to be students. And we would pitch to people like, hey, we have a club here on campus. The club never existed.
Never.
At least in my experience, it never existed. It was just a hypothetical club,
That's how
And
they start that conversation to talk to
yeah,
students.
yeah, I would go and approach students who are alone, right? I don't want to go to a group because I'm not going to get anybody if it's just a group. I would go to a student that's secluded in a area where they're alone, and then I would sit down and be like, hey, are you a student here? Just small talk for a minute. Like, hey, what are you studying? Da da da. And then I'd say, hey, we're a part of a Bible study club. It's called Elohim Bible Study Club, or it's called, I guess in some cases, Seven Thunders, or whatever the case. It's just a random Bible study club that doesn't exist. And then we would ask, hey, are you part of a club here on campus? And we try and recruit them that way by saying, hey, we have a club here. And if they're like, no, we're not religious. Oh, well, we do volunteer services. We do blood drives. We do food drives. You're not going to reject that, are you? So basically we're two-headed snakes. We're like, we have the Bible study, and then we have, if they refuse that, well, you're not going to refuse civil service, are you? You're not going to refuse blood drives, are you? Or food drives. And so that's essentially what happened to my wife when she was approached in 2014. So I was in for 10 years. So I was 19 and my wife was 18, and we just left, and we left 2024, almost end of 2024. So we were 30. So we were in for almost 10 years. My wife, almost 11 actually. But anyway, so that's why I went with my wife, because when she was talked to by these preachers, and it was actually the same leader that was under, that Mitch was under, who was preaching to her, which is how we know each other, because we had the same leader. But anyway, they were preaching to her about these different Bible studies and stuff like this. And she was like, no, I'm not really religious, because she wasn't really raised anything. The Whimscog was actually her first religion. But then after, they're like, well, we do volunteer services. Like, we do food drives and blood drives. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm interested in that. I want to do that, because how can you refuse that?
Right.
Right. And they'll always pull out like awards. Hey, look at all these awards we've gotten. Look at this list of awards we have. And so, it's very smart and it's very brilliant. It's just very deceptive,
Sure.
And we would have seminars on campus where we would have, speakers and stuff. Like I actually did one where I was speaking about, I think it was the tree of life or something like that. I don't remember too much, but we would try to get people in. We'd have pizza and stuff, and we'd try and get people in. But what people didn't know, the ones that actually came, that half the people there were actually members in disguise. So
to make it look like this is
full.
Everybody's really interested.
Yeah. To make it look really full, like it was packed to the brim,
Right.
And then after there was people there, and they would come up and ask questions, and it's like, oh, this random stranger you were sitting by who was quiet the whole time is somehow able to relay everything plus some of what was just said. Isn't that strange? Some random person. So that's
Wow.
kind of how they do things on campuses. And they have a bunch of different, like, they work with the United Nations and have all these NGOs and all these, memorandums of understanding and all these different things. But at the end of the day, it's just a facade to hide behind. It's just a mask. And it's a pretty good mask. I'm not going to lie. It's a really good mask. And a lot of cults operate like this. You look at Shincheonji, another Korean cult. You look at, off the top of my head, there's just all cults have some mask. They all have some sort of, exactly. And I think a lot of people think, cults, they have like black hoods and horns and, pentagrams all over. Like, that's not a cult. Actually,
No, I think
cults
people
look
realize
better.
that by now.
Yeah.
I think maybe decades ago,
Yeah.
but just with the amount of people that are talking about these things now on YouTube, people want to know, and
Yeah.
they're getting educated, and they're not dumb, and they see this. But this is really very troubling, this manner that you talk about, and it's something for people to really be aware of. My gosh, you could think that you're in a group with other people that are similarly situated, that you don't know something, but they are actually plants. They are part of that already, and they're there really to manipulate and persuade you.
Yeah.
It's a psychological game.
Yeah.
It is. And just like Adam was saying with the campuses, of course now they've gotten bigger, so they actually do have some like established like clubs now. But always before they even are able to establish a club on campus, they're always going to be using a front name or something like that before acting like there's already a club before there is a club as well. And there's other groups like this, like Shincheonji, they do the same thing. They don't, those people that just act like members, that join the Bible studies, and you don't find out until like 6 months later that they've been a member the whole time. They're just there to keep tabs on you. So like if you start to doubt or something like that, you think they're just another person and like not a member. So they'll open up to you. And then when you open up to that person, that's actually like, I guess you can say, undercover there, they'll report it back to the leaders. So they can get a lot of information on people this way. And you're right. The problem is in America right now, there's no education on groups to be aware of, or at least not to tell people don't go to this group or that group, but at least, educational awareness of groups that have deceptive practices and kind of different motives. So there's no education when you go onto campus, when you go to a college campus, and they tell you, "Hey guys, if you're ever approached by groups that like aren't officially associated with the campus or something like that, maybe you should be aware of this." So there's not much education.
They don't flag that at all. They allow it in. The colleges allow this to happen.
Correct.
And it's pretty much, they're sitting ducks there because the college isn't taking any control and monitoring this. Or have they been? Do you know if colleges have been informed about this cult?
They have. Some have been kicked off. Some have been kicked off some campuses for not like being a registered student organization and like hiding their identity. But other campuses have full-on clubs there, large clubs, and the goal is to grow that club big enough to where they can establish a church out of that club. Another big problem with these South Korean cults, World Messiah Church of God doesn't do it as much, but Shincheonji, like they infiltrate churches. So they'll go into a church and act like a member and become friends with leaders and stuff like that, and then it's called sheep stealing. They'll literally take members out of other churches. And another reason this happens is because churches aren't giving educations on cults or sound theology or how to watch out for these. So these cults are just snatching people up everywhere. I shouldn't say like snatching up, but that's really how it is. They're on campuses. They coerce people into doing it. Literally, it's already, the brainwashing already starts because they're not upfront about everything. And by the time you already find out about this, you're already like so deep into it that yes, it's not good. It's not good at all. Let's just put it like that.
Very similar to one of the cults that I'm following. It's the David E. Taylor JMMIKOGGC. So some people that I've had on or talked to, they said that how they got recruited is people would contact them if they were like in groups that were Christian groups, and they were already known to be part of different churches, but then they would recruit them into that cult, the JMMI cult. So, I mean, a lot of these things are well known and well established, but you know, you just it's amazing to me how. Let me ask you this: what is their end goal? Like, you know how some cults is like they want power, they want money, they want slave labor. You know, they want people to work on their farms or whatever it is. Not that it was a farm, but with the David E. Taylor one, it's the call center, and they were required to meet quotas to make money for the cult. So, do you know, is there, and sometimes there's a couple things going on. Do you know what their end goal was or is?
I'll let Adam speak first, and then I got a point on this.
I would say a lot of times it's hard to pin down one because I don't think there is just one. I think, I think when it comes to belief, anyone can believe anything. And so I think, and anything is justifiable too when it comes to a belief, right? We've seen some of the most amazing things happen in history and some of the worst things happen in history, all due to a belief, And I think in a way, you can justify and put away anything, right? If the narrative suggests so. For instance, like if we look at the Nazi Party, like how was Hitler able to make the Nazi Party? Because the Nazi Party wasn't always like that. He transformed it into something that is now a byword for evil, And how is it that happened? It happened overnight. And I don't think it happened one way. I think over time, the narrative just becomes more and more and more powerful. It's a phenomenon known as like mass formation, and the narrative becomes something that solves people's problems, gives them purpose, gives them some sort of hope. And, and anyone going against the narrative, that becomes not only just a disagreement, not only becomes something, that needs to be stopped, but needs to be destroyed. And so that's when you see these kind of things happen. And so I think if the narrative is strong enough, I think people can justify anything, taking money from people, having free labor, right? Because it's for the kingdom. It's for the glory of God. It's for your blessing. It's for,
Right.
They can create a narrative strong enough to where I think in these leaders' minds, they can justify, well, I'm leading people to God. So what if I get rich? I'm leading people to do good things they wouldn't do any other ways, even though I'm benefiting from it handsomely, even though I have power, I have riches, I have whatever I want, all these estates. I'm still leading people to God. So am I really that bad? So I think sometimes these cult leaders, one, they believe it enough to where they even deceive themselves, perhaps, and they think they're something. They think that they are almost on par with God and they are
Right.
God. And I think also, too, there could be the scenario where they didn't want it to get as far as it did, but it is this far. And so they feel maybe they're trapped and they just have to do it. That's another scenario. Or maybe, they just don't believe in God and they're just totally evil and they just don't care and they just want power and money and they know that this life is it and I'm just going to make it to the full, even though I have to crush people under me and I have to abuse people and steal and all this stuff. So to pinpoint why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and how people have let them get away with it, I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think there's a lot of factors and there's a lot of different outcomes and a lot of different ways this could happen.
Yeah, they are pretty smart about the way they do things, though, and that's why I say they built upon the Mooney playbook and they saw the things they did wrong. So many things that a lot of cults do wrong in South Korea is these leaders go and buy fancy cars. They go and have a massive mansion, or they have all these private estates. But the World Messiah Church of God, I still think they like that stuff. I still think they like the power, meaning Zangil Kim Ju Chol, but they're smart about it. The reason we don't know about any of their mansions or stuff is because there's no public record of it. The reason there's no public record is they've realized another way around this to still be able to live luxuriously without showing on paper that they own massive facilities. And this is through their church buildings. Pongyo Temple and their headquarters are massive buildings. And when you go to the Pongyo Temple or the headquarters, which I've been, there's like 3 floors on the elevator that are dedicated just for the General Assembly, the very highest people in the church. So it's very easy at this point. You have free labor. People, they go and construct and make you pretty much a nice villa within inside of these churches. But at the same time, nobody knows that you actually have like a mansion within inside of these massive buildings because there's no property record. It's registered under like a church or something like that.
Wait
So
a second.
this is how they stay out of the view of the public with like the mansions and stuff. So they seem humble. They seem humble. It's like, wow, like look, they don't have a mansion or anything and anything like that, but they actually do. They have large estates within inside of their facilities.
Inside the facility.
Correct. That's where they live. They live inside of their facility. I don't know the laws or the bylaws of, South Korea on this, but this is what they do. They have whole sections of the church building or their headquarters dedicated just for the General Assembly people.
And approximately how many General Assembly people are there?
I mean, like the very top people. So I guess all pastoral staff work for the General Assembly, but we'll also use the same term for like the top 10 people, the top 5 people that are actually the ones operating the masterminds behind the church. And what is so funny, no accountability, no transparency. The only people we actually know, like in America, who are in General Assembly are like Kim Ju-chol, the general pastor who's really running the show, and then Zongil Ja. But there's others too. But we don't ever know, we don't know who their names are. At least with the LDS church, we know who their, not the governing body. What? Maybe. What's it called? The governing body?
Bethel? Is it
Not
Bethel?
Bethel, that's Jehovah Witnesses, but the apostles, the 12 apostles for
Oh, yeah.
the LDS church. You know who the leadership is, at least. You know these are
Right.
your leaders, these are the 70, the quorum, the quorum of the 12, the first presidency. You know all that. You don't know that with the World Messiah Church of God. They don't share with you the higher up leadership. You only know the very tops. There's other people pulling the strings. They don't ever tell us about who these people even are.
We do know they're related, though.
Yes, most of them are related by blood in some way or another.
They're related to
family
Zong
business.
or Kim Ju-chol.
Yeah, a family business, which is very, very similar to a lot of ministries that myself and other podcasters talk about. Kenneth Copeland. Any of these ministries, they keep it in the family. Their board members are. I'm not talking about him particularly, but just giving you an example of these large ministries where they keep it in the family. And so I don't think it's any different with this. But what you're saying is that they're keeping it smart, so to speak, is very interesting, and having their mansions inside their own buildings. And this is in South Korea. That's not going on in the United States.
Mm-mm. No. Well, I mean, there's Daniel Lee, but it's very speculative. I mean, because pastoral staff, we're not as supposed to have our own businesses. We're not as supposed to do a lot of things because we're supposed to give all the money to the church as pastoral staff, like me. So we
And you
can't
get
own our
your
own
money
properties.
if you're.
Yeah.
How do you
Now,
get
I
your
will
money
say-
to give it?
Yep. I will say something. They are breaking a lot of codes and regulations with inside different states and cities, especially on building stuff. A lot of the time, they don't get any building permits for the work that they're working on inside the church, just remodeling it completely. Secondly, a lot of the pastoral staff live inside of the church in America, which in a lot of states is you have to have an auxiliary building that is like legally registered to be able to do that. But a lot of time, I can tell you right now, Oklahoma, no, they got no permit for that. We just literally transformed a room, built it up, and that's where the pastoral staff live in Richardson. And I'm fine saying this because what they are doing is illegal. A lot of the pastoral staff are living with inside the actual church facility, and a lot of the work that is done inside of these churches is not permit. Like there's no permits that they got from. They just use the free labor of the members, built the church up, and of course the city and the building code managers and stuff, they don't really go and look into this unless somebody kind of like mentions it to them. You know what I mean? They're not like really going and looking for that. But that's one thing. But there's one thing I wanted to mention really quick that you just brought up before we got onto this topic, and you talked about like this kind of online recruitment and like Christian groups and stuff like that. And this is one thing about a cult I infiltrated for 6 months that is very bad, and that's happening right now. They're using online platforms, Instagram, Telegram, Facebook Messenger. They're also getting into Christian groups and bringing them out. They're disguising themselves as a regular Christian Bible study, and they bring people into big group chats and big group lectures about their doctrine, their teachings. But they always start off small, calm. They always start with the Bible, but then they try to get you away from the Bible and then believing in this other God. This happens like a lot with Eastern Lightning. The Chinese cult that also believes in a female god, they came to America. That's what they're doing. Shincheonji does this like a lot. Whimscog, they're starting to do it more, like this online space of stuff, bringing people in under like a facade. But this is one thing that's really a problem. And I started to realize when I was in this group, it's very dangerous for like older people because I've noticed a lot of either college students or older people in these groups for two reasons. Older people, they might not have a good community. You know, they might be at home, they're lonely. And, you know, the older generation is very, we can say, religious, and they try to build these communities online with these people, and they're like, oh wow, a group that studies the Bible, let me join. And then they get sucked in, brainwashed, and then they literally throw their whole belief out. Now they believe in a female Christ from China, or they believe in Li Man He from Shincheonji. World Messiah Church of God, they're also starting to kind of do this as well now, and this is very scary for America and how many people are getting recruited through online, through campuses, and college kids too. Some college kids are very lonely and they're looking for community. Maybe they don't like fit in as much in college, and they go to these online spaces and they get sucked into these cults as well.
Yeah.
So it's a big problem in the US, and people don't realize how these Southeastern Asian cults are getting into the government, getting into politics, getting into our schools, our campuses, and it is growing so fast, but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, when you reached out to me, I had never heard of it. And so then I started researching it. So I guess it's been about a week or so, or 2 weeks, or I don't remember time. But then I started seeing some stuff, but I was seeing, like what you had done and some of the people that you're connected to. I had seen one or two videos that were done by Mike Winger, but it seemed as though he was incorporating the videos that you guys had done. That's what it seemed like to me. But you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he did his exposés on the Whimscog even kind of before. I think me and Adam were probably still in when he was doing his exposés.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing his videos about it, and I remember hating him, being like, you slander wicked
Yeah,
person,
definitely.
you're gonna go to hell because you're slandering the most holy God. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so he was way before us.
Yeah, I love Mike Winger now. I think he's
Oh
great.
yeah.
But oh yeah, while I
Wow.
was in, I was like, dude, you're going to hell, dude. Like, how
Wow, you
dare
guys were
you?
brainwashed.
Be like, it's hot where you're going,
For
buddy.
sure, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's do this, Adam. All right. So your wife is in it first. You get into it. You guys are in it. Are you getting paid? Because we're talking about that you have to pay them all your money or whatever. How do you get paid?
Well, you just trust God, you know.
Oh yes, yeah.
You don't need to worry about that, because as long as you pay us, as long as you pay our church, you pay for the
Right.
gospel, God will do everything, right? You don't have to worry about it.
But then
Except
they have
until
to
you can't
ask.
eat.
They have to demand it from you instead of trusting God, but you have to trust God. Got
Right.
it.
Which,
Yeah.
of course, but I didn't know about this grace, this amazing opportunity to donate all my income to the organization until they threatened me with hell over it. But then I was so thankful that I now know this grace of God that if I don't pay money, I'm going to go to hell, so.
Right.
And there was times where it was like I either had to pay tithe or I had to buy food or something,
Right.
because I didn't have any money. And
This
the
is
thing is,
extreme.
yeah,
Absolutely. We hear about it all the time that this
Yeah.
is going on. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's
No, it's
just
okay.
a reminder, because I talk about other organizations and we see that, but this is an extreme example. You just said, they're pressuring you to pay the tithe, but perhaps your family's not going to eat so that you can pay it so that you don't go to hell, according to what they say.
Oh yeah. I mean, we would just, and what we would do is, because they don't accept anything other than cash or check, right? You don't, so there's basically zero paper trail, right? To be real, they only accept cash or check. So, and it's already a nonprofit, so it's like, all right. But anyway, only cash or check, not traceable, not, they have no idea. Like, IRS can't really do anything about that. But, and so we would do that, and then we would put our bills and our stuff on credit cards, because we're like, well, we have to do something, right? We can't just not have power. We can't just not have a car. We can't just not have food. So we would pay all of our actual money to the church, and then we would just rack up credit card bills. I mean, I'm still paying off credit card debt, and I've been out almost 2 years, still paying off credit card debt, because you have tithe, which is 10%, but that's not it, right? You have another one. It's called the blue envelope, which is another offering. So you're doing another $50 maybe every Saturday to that, right? So you're giving 10%. You're giving, another $100 or $200 a month in just another offering. And then there's a brown envelope offering, which is another offering, and that's usually $15-$20. And so you have that. But then it's like, oh, well, we're doing construction, right? Or we need to replace the tile. Yeah, there's a building fund. And not only that, but hey, you like to eat in the church, right? You like to come and have meals together. Okay, well, that's not free, so you got to pay for that. Oh, you like to wipe your butt? Okay, well, we need supply donation, right? And then on top of that, hey, we're going to go help out another state because their preaching numbers suck. So we're going to go preach over there. Who wants to buy a plane ticket and buy a hotel and buy food? And, it's going to be another $700-$800 to go preach, but you're going to be paid in the afterlife in some obscure way, and so all these things just keep adding up. And pretty soon you're just giving, but you're not receiving anything, right? Like whenever I was struggling, you don't complain, you don't grumble, right? Because if you grumble and complain against God, you're going to go to hell. So you just suck it up and you just keep swiping the credit card and just like, okay, well, this is just my life now. I'm just going to pay for everything through the credit card. And it's not just me. And like, I had a decent job, right? It's not like I was like homeless or panhandling. Like I had a decent job. Like I was working a lot and I had a really good job, but I was still broke. I still couldn't afford anything. And thankfully we were able to buy houses and stuff. But guess what? When we sold our houses, we had to write a fat 10% check to the church, which they love that, So, anything, gift cards, right? If we got a gift card from somebody, we had to give 10% to the church. If we got food stamps, we would give some food stamps to the church. If we got anything, we had to give some of it to the church. Like they had their hands in everything. And I remember in education, and it was the same leader that Mitch and I had. He was like, if you have credit card debt, you're worse than homeless, because they hate homeless people, by the way. They refuse to do anything with homeless people. I mean, they'll do like projects or something to get an award.
PR, just PR.
Yeah, for PR. But I remember
they can't be members though.
No, I remember I was preaching to somebody and he was eating it up. And this was in Chicago. He was eating it up and he was like really buying into it. And I was like, oh, great. And I was like, you want to get baptized? And it was like a 30-minute walk to the church building to get him baptized. So we were walking 30 minutes. He was accepting. We went in, he got all changed and he was ready for baptism. And then as soon as we sat down to almost start the baptism ceremony, he's like, well, I don't have an address, because they want all this information when you get baptized. They have this form. You fill out all this information, your address, your phone number, your date of birth, what religion were you? Do you have family in other religions, and all this kind of stuff, like a bunch of information. And then as we were getting to the address part, he's like, well, I'm at the homeless shelter. And they're like, well, and then they kind of met with me and they're like, why'd you bring a homeless person in here? I was like, I didn't know he was homeless. And I basically had to tell him to take the robe off and to get dressed. And I was like, hey, now's not the good time for you, because you need to get your life together. When you get your life together, come back.
Oh my gosh.
Then you
and
can
so
come
I showed
to
him out.
Jesus. You can come to Jesus when you got money.
Yeah, come to Jesus when you have a job,
This is incredible.
401k.
Yeah. Oh, we got more for you. You have
I know
my
you do.
story with the
I know
money.
you do.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But okay. Go ahead. Who wants to?
I actually forgot what I was talking about. I went on a tangent. I forgot the original point. So.
Well, you guys are. Well, let me ask you this, Adam. You were working. You had a job, and you're paying all this. Was your wife working too, or because I know you have a wife and kids? Is she at home taking care of the kids?
She was at home taking care of the kids. Yeah, she was at home taking care of the kids, which the kids room is a whole nother thing. I mean, raising kids in this place is, if I could just talk about that for just a second.
Yes, please.
Sorry,
do.
Mitch.
No, you're good. I need to find a pen. So
okay.
But also tell the audience that you had to be doing something you did start out by saying that you had to be involved. If you're not at work, then you have to be doing stuff for the church. So you're essentially there almost every day.
Yeah. I mean, after work, I was there, right? So I would go to work, I would pick up my kids, then I'd go straight to the church, and the church would just watch the kids while I was doing preaching, while I was Bible studying, while I was doing all this other stuff. So, I remember I had a newborn baby on my lap and I was practicing sermons and Bible studying with somebody, and I had a newborn on my lap, right? Like that was just sleeping on my lap. And it's crazy too, because with the kids are just like second class citizens, right? Back in the day, they had no education, they had no nothing, right? They were expected, and here's how the Sabbath works for this organization. We're there from literally, I would say 8:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. on a Saturday in the building. And it was like the whole family, everybody's family, everyone. So we're all, and so these kids are in this room inside for 80% of the day. Like they would have some outside time, but it was only like an hour maybe. It's almost like prison, like, hey, you can go outside for an hour on a Saturday. It's like, and then when the kids get fussy and they want to run and they get crazy, then they get scolded and disciplined and sometimes even smacked or whatever. And I've heard like people actually smacking them, and there's many members that were known. And again, and the teachers in this organization, they have no licenses, no training, no background checks. There is zero security that comes, like you could literally walk into the kids' room and nobody's going to do a thing.
How about you tell them about the sex offender really quick, Adam? That was at the church.
Yeah, so there was a registered sex offender at the church, but nobody knew.
Don't tell the members. Somebody knows.
None of the mothers knew, which, to be completely honest and fair, I get it. People do evil things and people can change, right? Christianity is all about people changing, right? I'm not justifying anything, but I'm just saying, Christianity is about people who do evil things and then they repent and they change. And I'm all for people changing and healing and doing that kind of stuff. But there's certain things in this life that you do that just,
you're disqualified.
You're disqualified from certain things.
Never be around kids, and I don't think that they were allowed to legally either if they're a registered sex offender.
And I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying the church doesn't even respect its own members, but it itself demands the utmost respect, right? You can't even think that the church is wrong. You can't even think that or have a doubt in this organization, but in that you have to have the utmost respect and holy, honorable, just fortitude of awesomeness towards this organization. But when it comes to the members, they disrespect the crap out of the members. Like how disrespectful do you have to be to not even have the decency to let mothers know, hey, your kids are within 15 feet of somebody who has this background, has this criminal record.
Right.
Like legally or not legally, just the mere fact that you had no respect for the members who give you everything.
Yeah.
Their time, their effort, their money, put their kids into your hands. You don't even have the respect to let them know, the decency to let them know. And I remember I have this recording that I'm going to release here in a minute, but basically the missionary in my Salt Lake City church was like, well, he did that in the past and mother forgave him and et cetera, which again, cool, right? Like you've changed, you've been forgiven. Great. Grace of God, right? But he's like, but where should it stop, right? I tell this member, every member that comes, like, where should I stop? Like, where's the breaking point? Yeah, you keep telling people if there are kids and you want him to be there, that is the rule. That is the respect that they deserve.
Yeah.
Otherwise, have him keep personal service at home or something. If he wants to participate, have him do personal service, right?
Or not around the kids.
Exactly. Or have a all adult meeting or whatever the case is. Like,
Right.
But again, this is the disrespect that they even have for their members, and their members just take it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you about when you said that you were preaching? What are you preaching out of? The Bible or something else?
The Bible. So we would memorize scripts, right? Yeah. There's probably about 120. What do you say? 120 scripts. So there's 50 main subjects, and then there's 20 what we call like smaller subjects, like
but there's a lot about other stuff too. So.
Yeah, and then there's like other subjects too that you memorize as well. So I would say all in all, I probably had maybe 110, 120 subjects memorized that I could teach somebody. And so you would just pick one, right? And you kind of gauge the conversation, right? So if I'm talking to somebody, I knock on their door and I see they're Christian or they're LDS or whatever the case is, I can kind of gauge where I should go, right? And manipulate the conversation. Like we were wordsmiths. These scripts were very good, and we were expert wordsmiths, right? We knew how to trap people in their own dogma. We knew how to win the conversation, to just defeat them in really any shape or form, because all these questions were set up in a specific way to make you wrong, to make you stupid, or make you seem stupid. And so we were very good at doing that. And
they
that's what
taught
we would
you how
do.
to do that?
Oh, we had to. We had to. Because if you don't preach and you don't bring people in, you're going to hell, right? There's that same hellfire chasing your tail for everything that you're doing. But when it comes to the kids had it rough because, again, my kids were not allowed to do anything when it came to holidays, other religions, anything like that. And they were taught to hate, basically taught hate for others that do those things. And it got to the point where my daughter she was in kindergarten at the time, and she was going around telling people that Santa is the devil and Santa is Satan. And if you keep Christmas, you're going to go to hell.
Oh my.
Imagine a 6-year-old saying this to other 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
And we got an email from the teacher saying that, hey, your daughter is saying that people are going to go to hell if they celebrate Christmas. And she's saying Santa is Satan, and she's making all the kids cry. And I remember showing this to my leader because I was concerned. I was like, uh-oh, like this is not good. And he just starts laughing. Like it's the funniest thing. And I'm like there's psychos in this place. There is absolute psychos who have no conscience in this place, have no sense of humanity in this place. It's bizarre. Anyway.
Sorry, I just want to ask, in your area, when you just said that about the teacher emailing you, in that community, was it well known? Was this cult well known?
It's never well known.
Okay.
Even though it can be large in a whole area, for some reason, even though they preach to everybody, it's still not well known.
Yeah.
Because I'd never heard, not that, that means anything, but until you contacted me, Adam, I had never heard of it. Yeah. And then I started looking at it. So
yeah,
this is a scary cult.
Yeah. They're in every single state.
Yeah.
They're not just in just small house churches. They have massive churches in every state. They have house churches in every state. They have office churches. And this is just since 1997, the expansion. Right. It's in every single state. And they just bought a college campus in New York. So there's another. It's called the New Jerusalem. Is it the New Jerusalem University? It's been accredited too. It's been accredited. Yeah. So this is how undercover and how much they are in with the government and stuff. And I'd love to talk about my experience as pastoral staff with the money and stuff, because you're about to be like, this is nuts.
Let's do it.
Mitch, if I could just finish with the kids.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I promise that I'd finish with the kids real quick. So I remember there were newborns that actually were required to fast. Like months old, or not, actually not even months old, weeks old, that were required to fast. And again, if the narrative is powerful enough, you will do whatever you need to do, right? And so
a newborn's not getting milk because they're just getting the milk.
Yeah.
And then the mom is withholding the milk, making the baby fast.
Yeah, because that's what they were instructed to do.
And there's different definitions of fast for some people. So let them know what the World Messiah Church of God definition of fast is.
No food or water. In some cases, what is it, 24 hours or 12 hours? In some
I
cases,
did 3 days. The church made pastoral staff do 3 days, no food, no water.
Yeah. And not only that, but there's sleep deprivation too, right? 29 days out of the year, we'd have to go to church at 5 a.m. And a lot of these times, they're 7-10 days at a time, right? Like without interruption. And I'm hauling my kids too. It's not just like you just roll out of bed and you just sing a song, or no, you get up, you do your hair, you shave, you put on your suit, you get your kids dressed, and because you can't show up without dressed to the nines, right? Even if it's 5 a.m. So I'm dressing up. This is before work, right? I don't take the week off. I have work. So I'm waking up at 3:30, getting my kids ready, getting them in the car, driving them to the place, taking them out one by one, boom, 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 setting them up. They're just like,
right,
slumped over because it's 4 in the freaking morning.
Right.
And we're supposed to be there, attent, alert, and just ready and happy, not gloomy, not tired. And then go to work right after. So take them home, then go to work right after. And we do that for 7 and sometimes even 10 days. And there was a family, I think it was on the East Coast, that they got in a car accident after they left Pentecost, because Pentecost, there's 10 days of early morning worship. So you'd go there every morning. And then on Saturday, right, you would go there at 5 a.m. Then you have to be back at 9, then 3, then 8 p.m., right? So you're there all day from literally, in some cases, 4 in the freaking morning. And on Pentecost, you're there again, 5 a.m., 9 a.m., 3 p.m. So in succession, after 10 days, you're doing that. And I can't say this is the church's fault because I can't legally, but there was a poor family that after the Pentecost, after 10 days of doing this and working and all this kind of stuff, they got in a car accident, and all but one out of a family of 5 passed away.
Oh my God.
In a car accident. So I can't say, right, that
no,
the
you
church
can't
was responsible.
Direct causation. You don't know, but I
No.
mean, it's troubling that this is going on.
I'll say that's a very, very extreme coincidence then.
Okay. All right. So let me just clarify something here. So Adam, when you were in it, you had a job outside of the cult.
Yes.
Right.
I did.
You were not leadership other than your preaching there, right? But you're not.
I was technically leadership. I was a unit leader. So I was like the first tier, I guess. So I was nothing really in that case, because I think it's because I had kids.
Okay.
If you have kids, you're not really promoted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If anything, you're demoted.
So, but
They
Mitch,
don't like kids.
you were a pastor?
Pastoral staff. If we have to put it in the real world, if I had to compare it to the real world, which is hard to, because like they work, even just the regular members work harder than any minister does. Like really, genuinely. I'd probably say assistant pastor is what I would probably relate it to, because just like in a regular church, assistant pastor, if the pastor is gone, he's the one giving the sermon. He still needs to go to the other churches to give sermons as the assistant pastor. Or also, how could I explain it as well? Yeah, I'm still doing all the work, probably even more. Assistant overseers or pastoral staff, we're pretty much doing all the work, the same work the overseer is, per se. But yes, it's kind of, pastoral staff is like the top tier of the church. For like, there's only 75, 80 of us in the whole US, maybe.
Okay.
I think. But it gets crazy when you get pastoral staff. It's like you see the darkest side of the world. It's already dark as a member, which Adam shared with you.
Right.
But now you're in high leadership, and stuff starts changing a lot. So, for example, when I became pastoral staff, my overseer told me I should sell my car. So first off, they put you in an arranged marriage, right? So you have a spy at home. I'm not even joking you. The Koreans are the eyes and ears for the church at your home. So they got a spy at home. Then they tell you to sell your car. So now you're relying on their transportation like the church fans. And then my overseer told me I should get snipped. I didn't, but he told me I should get snipped so I don't have kids. And then lastly, give us all your money because you're pastoral staff now. I am considered property of the church once you become pastoral staff. So my overseer said, you need to give all your money pretty much now, because you should never have a plan B. You should never have a plan B. What this means, so pastoral staff, overseers cannot work. But the assistant overseer, half of them work in the outside world, and then half of them work full time in the church. Either way, it's full time, because when I'm done with work, I'm working at the church. Like, there's no question about that. And it depends how much you make. If you become pastoral staff and you didn't have a good job in the outside world, maybe you just work full time for the church, and then the church pays you very minimum wage. This is when you become pastoral staff, like you're an employee of the church. That's why they're called staff. However, if you work on the outside, the church does not pay you. So I give my money on my job is to give the money to the church. So I had an engineering job, and I won't say how much, but I was making well over 100,000 a year. And at this point, I was like, just like a regular member has to give 2 things. They have to give their 10% tithe, and they have to give their offering. This includes your Sabbath offering, morning, afternoon, evening. But this doesn't include all the other offerings also they put on regular members, like flower offerings, or we want to send a gift to mother. And on this point, before I move on, there's no accountability with this either. Let's say they say we want to buy flowers for the church, right? Like to put up on the altar, beautiful flowers. They have a flower team. and they tell every group and member, hey, donate and offer $20 for it. But you got to understand how many members are in the church. And if you ask every group and every member to give $20, do you think that's, don't you think we were probably been able to buy the flowers just by asking maybe one group of people?
Right. Yeah.
They don't tell you where the extra money goes. So they
Right.
ask everybody for
In
$20.
someone's pocket.
They have a lot of money now gathered, and then they go buy flowers. You know they didn't cost that much. They don't tell you, or they don't give you money back if people spent so much more. No, they just ask for that offering and expect you just to
Right.
listen and trust where the money goes. Now, as pastoral staff, it's 10%, and then also all of your money. 10%
Just all of
and
it.
all of your money. I was never paid by the church, yet I was pastoral staff. I was told that God gave me this job to support the church. My overseer told me I was already giving extra at this point. When I first joined, I was giving my 10%, and then I'm like, I got a good job, so I'm going to give extra. So I think I gave about an extra like $1,500 a month to the church, just out of generosity, because I was like, man, God gave me a good job, let me give more. My overseer decides to pull me to the side. He's like, you know what your sins are, Mitch? Just kind of a weird question to ask. And I'm like, yeah, I know what my sins are. I'm like thinking, I'm like, it's this, this, this. And he's like, no, you know what your sin is? It's money. And I was dumbfounded that he told this to me because I'm like, what do you mean my sin's money? I live in a shed. I literally live in a shed outside the property. And then you want me to, I'm living in Oklahoma. I don't want to live here. I was already done with the military at this point in college and stuff. I'm like, my thing is I wanted to move back to Colorado after, but I already was in higher up leadership, so I was just sticking around, for the gospel, for God's glory. And all my money was going to the church. I had no friends, no family, already cut them off. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't understand why this guy's saying money's my sin. Because in my circumstance and situation, it would be very clear if money was my sin. Maybe I'd be buying a house or I'd be buying a nice car, or so on and so forth. I wasn't doing that. So I was really dumbfounded when he said this. And he's like, I know how much you make. You need to be giving more to the church. He's like, I feel like you have a plan B. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have a plan B. This guy continuously coerced me out of my money. And I will say it was coerced out of it. Because at first, my tithe, my offerings, I was okay with that. That was out of my own heart. And they always teach you in the church, oh, it should be from your own heart, right? But I even told him, this doesn't feel like it's out of my heart anymore. He's like, you shouldn't like kind of get rid of your own thoughts. This is what God wants. And then to like help me think about like giving more, he's also showed me like the electrical and the insurance bill for the church. He's like, so expensive, this is why we need, your help with it. But I'm thinking about it, I'm like, do you just think I'm dumb? How was the church operating before I was giving all my money? You know what I mean?
Right.
How are you paying the insurance and the electrical then? So like he's guilt tripping me to give more.
Right.
And then so I start giving a little more. Think about 2,000. And when I say $2,000, this is not even including my tithe, which was already like
Right.
1,000. So now I'm giving probably like around 3,000. This isn't including also I have to pay rent.
On
So
the shed?
I have to pay the church rent. They're not even paying me. I have to pay them rent, and I have to pay for food for the church. Yet I'm not getting paid for any of this. And then I'm also giving them my money. I'm paying the church. The overseer had the audacity to bring this stuff up again to me. And at this point, I'm giving all my money to the church. I was saving a little, but it wasn't much. My overseer eventually brought it up again. He pulled me in his office. He's like, I really don't like talking about money, Mitch. He's like, oh, I really hate it. But he's like, I don't feel like you're giving everything. And I was just like, why are we still talking about money? And I got so, this is when I started to doubt the church and see the inner workings and like, what's wrong? This is the first time I ever rose my voice at my overseer, because you don't, again, we're supposed to give them utmost respect. But me, you know what I mean? I can't do anything, or I can't say anything, because everything is God's will, everything is churches. But at this point, I couldn't handle it. I'm like, something's wrong. It was wrong in my heart. And I was like, you know what, dude? Let me show you my bank account. So I showed him my bank account. And I was like, does it look like my money's going anywhere? Does it look like I'm spending it on something? No, it's all going to the church. And I'm like, oh, maybe you think I'm doing crypto or stock. So I have to show him all my apps. And then you know what he does? A sigh of relief. Like he didn't trust me this whole time. He thought I had another plan. My money's going somewhere else. And I was so pissed. I was like, this is so wrong. What you're
It
doing
is.
it was so wrong. And I was coerced out of it. And after that, he told me, you know what, Mitch, this is what we're going to do. Give me a savings number, and it cannot be above $5,000. I'll let you save up to that amount. But after that, you have to give 100% everything after that. It was crazy. And then our relationship went really bad. It got really bad after that. And his wife even told me she hated me. And I started seeing the corruption and the messed up stuff going on with inside of the church and how they're acting. And I started researching online, and I wasn't putting up with things anymore. And my overseer, I had a feeling he could tell, oh my gosh, we're going to have a serious problem. A leader might leave. So he brought me into his office one time. He didn't say anything. He just threw a stack of papers on the table and he went to his desk. And I'm like, what's this? He's like, I just need you to sign this stuff. And I'm reading each page. This guy's been keeping tabs on me, like micromanage me. He said, Mitch couldn't go on this date at this time, date blank, 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 blank. Because of this reason, he makes the church look bad. Because of this reason, he doesn't give glory to God. And this is why he's being bad pastoral staff. It wasn't that he could kick me out, because only the head office can kick me out as pastoral staff. They want me in as pastoral staff. They're doing this as blackmail.
Right.
I'm reading it and I say, Eddie, this seems like straight up blackmail, because half the stuff in it was not true. And half the stuff in it was extravagated. Like, meaning it was like, he never even came to me, like simple stuff like Mitch installed something wrong because he didn't ask for my understanding or support. And because of this, he's super arrogant because he thinks he knows everything. Like stupid stuff like
He
this.
wants you to sign off on this.
Yeah. So I said, this seems
Admitting
like straight
to
up
it.
blackmail, Eddie. And he's like, this isn't blackmail. He's like, brother, this is I'm giving he's so manipulative. He's like, brother, I'm giving this to you because I want to help you to show like things you need to work on. I said, Eddie, then if this is like something to help me and support me, why were you tracking me? You have everything time stamped, and then you have negative stuff at the bottom. This is a big stuff. You have why it makes the church look bad or stuff, and then you're telling me to sign it. If this isn't blackmail, why do I have to sign it? I said, I don't agree with half the stuff in here, and I wasn't going to sign it. And I was like, I might step down. Like, this is crazy. And he was getting upset that I wouldn't sign it. I was like, no, you need to change stuff. So he's literally on his computer typing, changing stuff and stuff on it. And he hands it back to me. And I was just done with it. I was just like, whatever. I signed it.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was coerced into signing this. And again, it couldn't be held, it couldn't ever be like used in court. The reason they want that is because if I leave, they can make propaganda videos about me to show members. See, Mitch was bad. It wasn't us. He was bad. Look, he signed it. He signed
Right.
it. So this
Right.
is what they do to former leaders. That's why so many leaders like me don't speak out. Me and Quincy, the same assistants who are under the same overseer, are the only assistants in the whole all of America since they've been here to speak out, because they do NDAs to silence people. And on top of this, let's talk about sleep deprivation in my schedule. I had my physical job. I got up at 5 a.m. I got up at 2. Immediately when I got back to the church, I had to go preach or start on construction work. And I did that until 6 p.m. And then at 6 p.m., I had to start the preaching meeting. So when the members gathered, I already had to be dressed, ready to go, lead the preaching meeting, like with prayer, singing, and then sending people off to their locations they're going to go preach at. Or I'd be doing construction until 8 p.m. and then we had dinner. And then after that, since I'm pastoral staff, everybody else goes home. I'm pastoral staff. I don't go home. I have to be up before my overseer, and I can't go to bed until he goes to bed, because I'm I am literally the slave of the church. And then I'm the person that's eventually going to become an overseer. So they try to break you as much as they can until they put you into that really high leadership position. And I'd be working on videos or doing construction after that until midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning, because my overseer stayed up so late doing work. And then I'd have to go to work the next day. This was every single day. I never had a day off. They do give you vacation as pastoral staff, but you know what our vacation is? We get 5 days a year. Other than that, we have no excuse to be anywhere else. We are full time at the church doing ministry. You can't just take time off for yourself. But we're given 5 days a year, and this isn't no fun vacation, go on a cruise, go to a different country, have fun. No, because we're not supposed to talk or meet to our parents in order so the church doesn't get persecuted. We're supposed to go back home to our family to make it be like, hey, like we're still here, you know what I mean? Still alive. So that happened. the blackmailing of my overseer, the coercion, literally the coercion out of all my money. I left that church with like zero, other than a sum in my savings. And it got worse. You know, they had my wife spy on me. They sent me to Korea because I was a high up leader and they're scared because of all my doubts. They sent me to Korea. I met with their mother god, their high up leader Kim Ju-chol. They lied. They literally have failed doomsday prophecies. They couldn't answer them. I had the original books. They literally don't let us go online or the internet, so on and so forth. Whatever. Let's just skip past that. But I end up leaving, right? I come back to Oklahoma. I leave the church. And then eventually my wife does come with me. I call them out on a lot of their manipulation, their lies, their failed doomsday prophecies, their history that they manipulated and lied. Because all this group is lies. They change the story when something doesn't fit the narrative. They remove it from like their books or stuff. And I call them out on all this. I finally left. When I left, even when also I need to emphasize this: when somebody leaves the church, you cannot contact them as a member.
You're
This
shunned.
isn't just This isn't just if they
Heavily shunned.
heavily. Well, I will say, I do gotta say, it's not as bad as Jehovah's Witnesses
Okay.
unless you speak out. When you leave to a new church location, let's just say you didn't get kicked out or like you didn't step away from the church, you just go to a new location, like you moved. The members of the former location are still not supposed to talk to you. None of them. So you're supposed to cut contact. And also, if somebody leaves the church, you're supposed to cut contact. So when I came back to Colorado, nobody from Oklahoma ever talked to me again. They did. I was still in the church. I just stepped down from pastoral staff. However, when I finally called head office and had that final phone call with them, which I tried to do on my own, but they kept bringing my wife into it, I called them out. You guys are liars. You guys are frauds. I will never give my money or tithe ever again to you guys. Hung up. I was done. That's when my wife, of course, got the new bank account, so on and so forth. I already saw it coming. It was coming down I knew it was going to happen. That same week, I started noticing the numbers from Oklahoma. They're blocking me. So now that I'm out and they know I'm a threat because I'm a leader, I start getting blocked. So I call my overseer. He doesn't answer. I said, "Why are you shunning me like the Jehovah's Witnesses are?" He reads it, and he also reads my text. He doesn't call me. Guess who they call? They call my wife. And then my wife comes, and they both say both times, the head office and my overseer, don't record us. Because they want to give you some BS answer, to be honest with you, about
Right.
everything. So that happens. Eventually, I'm going to do my interview with my friend Adam, and Quincy did it first, the former assistant overseer of Eddie. And I sent that video to Eddie, and I said, if I don't get an apology or a written response from you, I'm going to be doing a video too. I said, I'm going to still do a video, but I want to leave your name out of it. I wanted to give them enough respect if they could at least apologize and admit their wrongs. The blackmailing, his wife telling me she hates me and the way she treated me. I was like, then I'll leave you guys out of the video. So he calls me on a fake number. And then it was so funny. I'm always outside having phone calls at a certain location. And he said, I won't talk to you unless your wife's there. And he's like, I don't consent to being recorded. And I was like, why do you guys always bring my wife into this? Like, get her
Get
out
her
of it. This is this is between me and you, not me and
Right.
my wife. But they want to control her.
Right.
Because she's Korean, they also listen, especially the Koreans, they will listen to whatever the head office says, whether if it's against their best interests or not. So I'm on the phone, and it's funny, 5 minutes into it, just trying to get him to talk, my wife comes outside. And I'm like, what are you doing out here? She says, you're being too loud. And I'm like, that's very interesting because I'm speaking in the same tone of voice because I'm always on the phone in the same spot. She's never come out, ever. Same tone of voice. She comes out this time. I'm like, did his wife just tell you to call you? She's like, no. And I'm like, leave. This is between me and the church.
Right.
So she leaves. And then I confront the overseer on him telling Quincy, because when Quincy stepped down from pastoral staff, he didn't even leave the church, just stepped down. Eddie told him, by doing this, you're injecting heroin into your veins. You're injecting black tar into you. You're committing spiritual unaliving.
Right.
And that's what happened. And then they spread a malicious rumor about him when he left. They said he stepped down because he was gay. Now, I think Quincy, I've mentioned in other interviews as well. I think Quincy's fine us telling because he's said it publicly.
Right.
Quincy did come out gay after. However, he didn't leave the church because he was gay. He left because of the way he was treated by the overseers and the organization, being overworked, and then the false doctrine. That's why he left. But there is no protective, what's it called in church when you should, when people tell you something you should,
Confidentiality.
there's no confidentiality. You know, you think when you go to a leader or something and tell them something, they should have a confidentiality, right? To not spread to other members. So no, the church just decided to tell everybody the reason he left was because he was gay.
If I could
is,
jump in
first
here,
off,
Mitch,
yeah.
real quick.
Has anyone sued this church? Any of these?
No, they sue
They
members
sue
to
us.
speak out.
They sue, right?
We don't have the money to. They drain us of all of our money. So I'll let you really quick, Adam, speak on Quincy's thing with that. But I have another point also to explain
Well,
after that.
Since we're talking about confidentiality, yes, Quincy was broken after that, and he's a really good man, and he was one of my best friends in the cult. Still is a really good friend of ours too, and they broke him pretty bad. But for the confidentiality, here's something that I don't want to go unnoticed. They have something called letters to mother. See, Mitch is already.
I was
Save
going
some
to
more
ask,
water
do
for
you
this
guys
one. I'm
have
sorry.
any communication with Mother?
Yeah, so here's the devious thing, right?
He doesn't read them.
They have this thing called letters to mother. It's like this online thing where it's basically an email, right? And you go onto the website, you have to be a member, right? You have to have a login and credentials and stuff. But anyway, you log into the website, or I think it's in the app now. It used to be in the website back in the day, but it's in the app now. You can send letters to mother, right? And a lot of the time they emphasize repentance letters, right? So you're writing your name, you're writing your phone number, your whatever, your credentials, and you're writing your repentance. Oh, mother, I'm so sorry. You, the Most High God, I'm sorry I committed this sin. Please help me overcome this, right? And you send it. Now, what do you think that could be used for, Vanessa?
Blackmail.
Yeah. And also, too, it also creates what we call mystical manipulation. Because think about it, Mother isn't the only one that reads those letters. And if you believe that and you're a Whimscog member watching this, you've been duped.
4 million people. I know people that were writing 3 letters a day.
Yeah.
There's 4 million members. And you think Zangilja, the 83-year-old woman's reading all those?
Yeah, right.
She's not the one reading them.
No.
She isn't.
Someone
They just
is reading
want
them.
the dirt on the members. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a very typical.
Scientology does this. That's why they do all those. They do the e-meter and they have you tell all of these things that happen to you, and they
Yeah.
keep record of it. So when you leave, they can use it against you.
Yeah.
Right. And same with Keith Rainier. If you guys know about the Nexium cult,
Yeah.
what they would do, they had to give collateral to be in this certain group where the ladies were getting branded, so
Yeah.
that if they came out of order, then they would use the collateral. It's something bad. They have to
Blackmail.
something bad. That wasn't a religious cult. That was a self-help group. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keith Rainier's in federal prison
Thankfully.
for over 100 years. But so no, all these cults, they have a lot of similarities. And this, I mean, everything that you're saying is there's similarities with pretty much every ministry that I talk about.
I would say the most
Go ahead.
devious thing about the letters to mother, though, is
Mhm.
is the way they're used to keep people in, but not really because of the blackmail. It's more of because
It's control.
well, for instance, right? Let's say I'm struggling with a certain sin, right? And I've been praying like, Mother, Father, please help me overcome this sin. And then I write a letter about it. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, right? Not right after, but 2 or 3 weeks or even a month later, the missionary or the pastor or whatever, the one in charge of the sermons, delivers a sermon attacking and not attacking, but more so like attacking the sin, right? Like helping, like giving me a sermon about the sin, how to overcome it and how to, or let's say I'm writing about persecution. Oh, Father, Mother, my family doesn't believe and is persecuting me. Then a month later, 2 weeks later, there's a sermon about overcoming persecution. And so it creates this manipulation where people believe that God is actually hearing their prayers, but it's theater.
Manufactured. Absolutely.
That's the most devious part of it, is they believe that God is answering their prayers, but it's just theater. It's manipulation and deception.
It doesn't even, I don't think, I know there's been allegations. It's hard to confirm. I don't think they go directly to the overseer at first. I think they either go to a regional leader or head office and then because they want full control, even over the leaders, like the pastoral staff, right?
Of course they do.
I think it does go to either the regional leader and then he'll decide. It always goes to Korea no matter what.
Oh, for sure.
But But I do think it goes to like the regional leader or head office, and then they decide what to tell the overseer based off of what's in that message, because they want to also control overseers. They don't want, because what if an overseer is doing something very bad, actually very bad, and he knows it, and then he gets to read those letters? He might be able to change his playbook. So I think the church also wants to know if like maybe there's a pastor being corrupt or something like that, or like a leader. So they would rather have those letters go to the head office or the regional leader first, so they can maybe take care of it in house. But if it's needed, it gets sent to the overseer about that person, or so on and so forth. But yeah, there's no confidentiality within this group, and when you leave they will spread lies about you, especially when you
Right.
speak out on a leader. And this is where I'm wondering, like, even legally, if I have something against them, because when I need to kind of give you a backstory. There was a pastor, because it's going to tie into this. There was a pastor in Denver. He went rogue against the church, and he took a lot of the members out, and he started his own church called the New Jerusalem Church of God. They also believe it's a crazy, like, they just changed the theology. It's kind of like if we said, there's the LDS church, but there's the FLDS church. Do you know the
Mhm.
FLDS church?
The fundamental,
Yeah.
Yeah, with Warren Jeffs. Yeah.
yeah, with Warren Jeffs, who's in
Mostly same
prison.
doctrine, but totally different groups and different practices.
Right. No, I was
Yep.
aware. Yes.
This is what happened. There was a pastor like this that left Denver, started his own church, took a lot of members out. They follow similar teachings, but not fully. The
Right.
World Inside Church of God had an education on this church, and they said anybody that's a part of his church is excommunicated. They are demon possessed. They are going to hell. Okay? So this is how they labeled him, or anybody that followed his group now.
Right.
When I officially left, I have 3 firsthand witnesses, actually 4 now, because there's another one that left. 4 firsthand witnesses, text message proof, and audio proof that the World Mission Society Church of God had all the leaders and members tell all the members, don't talk to Mitch, he joined Daniel Park's church. So they spread a direct lie, which is defamatory, that hurts my reputation. And this is why also other people, they won't talk to me. And I got a text message from a member saying, you're demon possessed, you're going to hell. Um, like, you need to repent. He's like,
Right.
just crazy stuff. I got a crazy text message, and they might act upon this kind of stuff. So that rumor was spread about me. And then
Right.
about a month ago, they had a sermon, and one of our people in the church recorded the sermon. And in that sermon, you know what they said indirectly? They said, anybody that left the church or is a traitor, they need to be killed. They need to be put to death. And he said, just as it was in the Old Testament, this is still valid for the New Testament now. And in that sermon, they say, disconnect from any traitor. Do not speak to them. Do not talk to them. They should be killed and put to death. And he
Do you
didn't
have that
clarify.
sermon?
Yeah, I have that sermon. And they did not clarify. And guess what's amazing? They put all their sermons online. They don't. This one was not online. They didn't post it online. We got the audio recording, but if you're a member and you have the login to their app,
Right.
we have the screenshots of the sermon, and we have the video sermon, like a lot of it recorded as well, like video recorded from there. So we have proof that they told this. The same day my wife got up and left me was the same exact day they dropped this sermon. That sermon is scary, because if there's somebody mentally ill, they might act upon this.
Oh yes,
They they
100%.
could go out and hurt somebody. It's not them directly saying, actually go. They did. Honestly, that sermon is crazy.
Has
They're literally
anybody
saying, kill
shared
us.
any of this with the FBI?
The FBI, we've been reaching out to them so many times and nothing's been done. It's just like, we're just like thinking like, what's going to happen? I mean,
Well, we'll talk about that. But let me. There was something that I wanted to. There, on the thumbnail that we have, I've got your pictures, but there's also a group of young men. Who are those young men that are in the picture on the thumbnail, Adam?
So actually, the one to the furthest left, if you're looking at it, the one to the furthest left is actually Quincy. He left. The one to the furthest right, he's actually a member who was in Korea, who moved to Korea and actually left the church after meeting Mother, because he honestly, he's like, I met her and I was so unenthralled. What's the word? So disenchanted by her that I was like, there's no way this lady's God. She didn't know anything about me. She didn't even know my name.
Gotta wear a
Like
name
I looked
tag.
into her eyes, and when you can see people who you know, and you kind of have that recognition, like that recognition spark, like he's like, I didn't see any of that. Like actually meeting Mother was the last straw for me because of how disenchanted I was by her. I was like, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Like at least Jesus like raised people from the dead, walked on water, turned water into wine or something, right? Like everyone was amazed by him and his teaching, but her, like, no. She's like some just random Korean lady. And he's like, that's all I felt. Anyway. And then the rest of the gentlemen on there, they're still in.
They're still in.
The church runs like the Wizard of Oz. At the end of the Wizard of Oz, they go into the castle. There's a guy running the machine in the background.
The man
That's
behind the curtain.
exactly how that's exactly how this church is running.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Let me ask you this, because we've got Mother God or God the Mother. If you're teaching out of the Bible, are members saying, where in the Bible is Mother God? Where does this come from? Anyone question that?
They got some good verses to use. Obviously, if they're out of context, but if you don't
They have to
continue, if you don't continue to read, and they'll also use like human nature, which is, I think this is like their strongest point. Actually, not even using the biblical point, they do use like Romans chapter 1 verse 19 through 20, and in it says, actually, let me just really quickly go to it. And this is, I would say, the main one I like to use always when I was in.
While he's finding that, basically their whole argument is straw manning. You know what straw manning is?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for the audience that doesn't know what straw manning is, it's basically there's a premise, right? But you take a tiny piece of the premise and you blow it up and you have an argument with that. That's basically straw manning. Instead of having the argument with the full context, full premise, you take a little tiny piece, blow it up, and you have an argument just with that. So they are making their own arguments and arguing against the
Something
arguments
that you're not
they
even
made.
asking. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what we would do to convince people there's God the Mother. There's many different ways, but like, so this one, I'll kind of preach it like they would preach it. So Romans chapter 1, verse 19 through 20, it reads, since what may be known about God is plain to them because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible equalities, his eternal power and divine nature have been what? Clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. So people are left without excuse. So what I would tell a person I'm preaching to is like, if you want to know about God, what does God say? If you want to know his divinity, his eternal power, his invisible qualities, all God says is we just need to look at his creation work. Then when you look at God's creation work, look at the birds in the air, the fish in the sea, all the animals that run along the ground. What's so similar about this God's creation? There's a mom, there's a daddy bird, a mommy bird, a baby bird. In the fish, there's a mommy fish, daddy fish, what? Baby fish. Zebra, there's a mommy zebra, a daddy zebra, baby zebra. Even trees, one pollinates, one doesn't. There's a male, a female, just like magnets, a positive, a negative. This is throughout all of God's creation. So then when you also see this, God says we can understand this even through the creation of the world. Then when we go to the creation of the world in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, it says, then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. God didn't say, let me. God said, let us. That's plural. Then what are the images that came out from God? It's male and female. So what does that show you? God is both male and female. In the same way that God has children, there's our Father God, Mother God, and God's children. In the same way that everything in God's creation that teaches us about God proves that there's a father and a mother in heaven because of what God created on this earth.
Mitch, what you just said, was that something that they told you to teach and how you would answer when somebody would question the Mother God?
Or I might
100%.
just share that with them on to get them to believe Mother God. And there's other verses I would use. Of course, they're out of context. But if I read it and tell you like this, and it makes people, and instead of just putting them into a biblical view, something that people understand, nature, God's creation, like, and then you're like, oh my gosh, yeah,
But
that's
would you
right.
come up with that? Did you come up with that, or would
I
they?
didn't. No, I didn't come up with that.
It's the
Maybe my
script.
way of presenting it, but
Okay,
I
no,
did it that
fair
way. That
enough.
wasn't scripted, but it is exact way they would teach it. Same
Got it.
context and everything
Yeah.
like that.
So
Yeah.
they would have what's called sermon books, and it's basically verse, transition, and they would have like hooks, and it's very
Examples.
very well thought out. Like they would have a hook, then they'd have a verse to prove the hook, then they'd have a transition into another verse, they didn't have an example. And then, so they had this basic blueprint, and
Sure.
that's basically what we would follow. Of course, we would deviate here and there, but it was the main recipe, and we would all have our own little way of doing it. But
Sure.
I would say the same thing Mitch said, right? Maybe not in the same order, but I would have said basic. There is a confine of this is what you are to say. Anything outside, we don't. But as long as it's within bounds, you can say it however you want to say it, basically. But they want it structured as they have it. But it just depends on who you're talking with. And of course, there's like countermeasures. What we would say is like, if somebody's objecting to it, we would go in to this way and
Right.
try to stump them and be like, okay, now did we calm that? Okay, now let's get back into this. And the funny thing is too, is their unsung home, their second coming Jesus, wrote a book, a full-fledged book, completely debunking God the Mother theology just before he died.
This one.
But they don't let the members read it.
Yeah, you can't read this. We had to get these. Took a year for us to get these books.
Wait a minute. So
They're Christ.
they're
It's
Christ
fraud. It's fraud, honestly.
They're Christ wrote a book
before he died.
before he died.
He wrote a book debunking the whole
Mother God.
cult.
Yes.
And how did you get a hold of it? Like, how did you find out about it? Because
We had to go to the original church.
The original Church of Unsung Home, yeah. And get the original books that they don't give us that are unedited. Like this one has 3 extra chapters in them, but the World Messiah Church of God took away 3 chapters because there's failed doomsday prophecies in this.
when you're reading these books, these are in English?
Korean.
These
So
ones
how
are
are
in
you-
Korean.
Okay,
But
how are you-
the ones that the World Messiah Church of God, it has it translated in like 100 and different countries.
Sure, different
Languages.
But the one that you just said that it was debunked,
They're all Korean.
And you don't have an English copy?
We have it online. Like we have the English version online, but
Got
it's so easy to translate stuff like accurately through stuff like AI and ChatGPT now
Yeah.
to like a 99% accuracy. So
Right.
we know what it's saying,
Here's a crazy story. So this isn't the first time a God the Mother was preached in the church. So before Unsung Hong died, there was a missionary, a leader in the church that started proclaiming herself as God the Mother, the bride, the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. Literally the exact same thing the Whimscog holds and preaches today was already taught before the so-called mother was revealed by a different woman in the church. And she was causing a lot of problems because people were leaving. They weren't abiding by Unsung Hong's theology. It caused a lot of issues. And so this was happening in the early 80s. And I would say, like 82, 83, he wrote a book debunking Mother God. And he said, this is the unchanging truth, right? Women like Suin, who was the first Mother God deity that came into the church. Women like her causing trouble in the church, right? She's going to have, who can forgive her of her sin, right? You have to be out of your mind, mentally ill to believe in God the Mother. Like really strong language like this throughout the book. But of course, after he died, all of a sudden, Zongil Ja is revealed as this new God the Mother. And they use the same verses that Unsung Hong wrote a book completely debunking. I mean, it's pretty easy to speak for a dead guy, I guess. But of course, the members, they'll say, well, we know about that book. Okay, but have you read it? Yeah, we've read it. No, they are shown a preface of it.
Right.
And half of it's blotted out.
Blur out
Yeah, half of it's blotted out. And they only show you a couple of lines.
Right. They're gonna
But
tell
nobody's
them.
actually read it for themselves. And they're not allowed to read it for themselves. In fact, Mitch mentioned 3 missing chapters in the books that we had. I asked my overseer before I left, and my wife did too. We're like, can we read his writings? Because he's the second coming Christ, right? Without him, we don't have the truth.
Yeah.
And we asked, can we read his original works? Can we read his original chapters? And we were told no.
They don't want us to, because when you do, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They tell us you cannot go online. It's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. If you go online, you're going to die because you're disobeying God. Mother told us. But guess what? It's self-fulfilling, because when you do go online, you do die. You find out this church is a fraud. They take out books that go against their doctrine, against their founder. So we first believed in the church actually because of the prophecies of the second coming Christ. We thought he was a savior. But come to find out, the own founder doesn't even believe the things that the World Messiah Church of God is teaching. Actually, he's completely against it with
Right.
the the mother god and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But again, they did get rid of the original green book, is what it's called, but this one's brown. But he also did have failed doomsday prophecies, but we didn't know that before. It says in the chapter 1 of this book that 1988 is going to be the end of the world, and that chapter 36 or chapter 37, he claims to be like the Elijah that will ascend alive with the 144,000 in 1988. But guess what? He died in 1985. The 144,000 did not ascend alive with him because he died a couple years
Right.
prior to 1988. And even before he died, he wrote another book because he knew 1988 was coming, and I'm assuming he knew it was going to fail. So he put another date in there. He said the world should end in 1988, but if it doesn't, it will surely end in 2012. But the end can come anytime between 1988 and 2012. So the church also preached doomsday in 2012. I've talked to interviewed people all around the world. Adam has too. And they all say, yes, we all taught the end of the world was going to happen in 2012. And guess what? People sold homes. People gave their money to the church. People prepared doomsday bags. And guess what?
We're
It
all here.
didn't happen. And now the church says, we have never taught that. We never taught that the world was going to end in 2012. They gaslight members. And
Mhm.
now the new thing is, we were always told, me and Adam, Zongil-Ja will ascend alive with the 144,000. We will not go to heaven. Zongil-Ja will not die. When it's time for us to go, we'll ascend alive with Mother to heaven. But guess what they're saying now? I had an audio recording, a secret. It was a one-party consent state that was sent to me by a member in their congregation, which they record as well. They record the sermons as well. I got it recorded. I posted on YouTube. It got copyright because they don't want it to get out. They copyright struck my video because in the video they're saying, no, Mother can die now. No, she can die. We've never said that she couldn't die. 5 years prior, they already knew this was going to happen. So their new songbook, or hymn books, in the hymn books it says, "We will send alive hand in hand with our heavenly Mother." And Mother cannot go back to heaven until she finds 144,000. Guess what they did? Years later, they literally have us tear up the pages and burn the books, burn the evidence. This happened about 5 years ago. Now they have new songbooks that don't say that. So
Right.
it's like they can say, we
Never
never
change.
taught that.
Right.
We,
Because
we
they
never
get rid of
said
the
that.
evidence.
Yeah.
Right. Can I ask you what the hierarchy is there, Mitch? Because you talked about the staffers and the overseers and
Yeah,
pastors.
it's
What's
a pretty
what's the hierarchy?
interesting. Like I'll do it basically. I won't say like titles because it can get confusing with titles and positions. We'll just go over positions. There's like the General Assembly leaders. So they tell us it's Zongil Ja Kim Ju Chol, but actually the real mastermind it's Kim Ju Chol. He's at the top, the general pastor, and then it's God the Mother, right? And then there's these body of like elders. We don't even know their names. They're actually pastors, but we'll just say a body of elders, and it's like five or more of them, and they work at the head office, and from the head office they have like a whole staff that create the books, that work on the propaganda videos, that do everything that gets sent out to the world. Now in like the States, for example, there is the regional pastor. There's about seven, I would say, in the United States. So there's a regional pastor, and then after that there's like main church like leaders, like the overseers, and then there's the assistant overseers. They're the ones that will soon become overseers. And then there's group leaders, and then there's unit leaders, and then there's like evangelists, and then there's lay members, like just regular baseline
Members.
members. Yeah,
Right. My
there's no
goodness.
accountability either. Again, like
Right.
money, we don't know where the money goes. I do
Right.
know our Sabbath offering because my wife worked in the accounting, and I used to bring the money to the bank too. The money that we received from like the worship services, not from tithe, that was helped to pay church bills within the church. So I have no problem with that. That's pretty simple, straightforward, because you got to maintain the church. Okay, there's offering, cool, that goes to that. But your tithe, this we gather up, we take to a bank, and then every regional church, like there's a main regional church, and we send the money to that church. But it's under like some LLC or something like that. After that, I don't know where it goes to. I'm assuming back to Korea. Another thing I want to mention with labor laws, like we've mentioned, I find it very shocking, and it kind of really made me mad when I was in Korea. There's all these people in Korea working. They do construction work for the church, they do landscaping for the church, they do the media team work for the church. Guess what they all get? They get paid by the church in Korea. But over here in America, Nobody gets paid. They buy a cheap church. They use free labor to build the church, and its property value just increases exponentially. They ask members to help with material. I will say the church does provide like financial support for some material, but they want the members to support with a lot of the material. It's free labor, electrical,
The
HVAC.
members are providing free labor and have to purchase the materials to build.
A lot of the time, yeah. I'm not saying they purchase all the material, but they're encouraged to buy a lot of the material to help support and build the church.
I'm
And
surprised
we never
nobody's
get
gone
paid.
to an attorney to talk about this stuff.
We never get paid. We never get paid for any of it. But they pay them in Korea. Like, that's so unfair. Why are they getting paid to do the construction work, the media work, where we're busting our butts off? I'm there all day. Literally, and especially once I quit my engineering job, I am at the church every single day doing construction, preaching, admin work, whatever with this church, and none of us were paid. And here's the funny part. When I stepped down from my position as an overseer, my overseer handed me a resignation letter to sign. I couldn't sign my own resignation letter. So first off, I'm pastoral staff that never got paid. If I'm not a paid employee, why do I have to sign a resignation letter? I found out why you need to sign a resignation letter, or they want you to,
NDA.
because
They want
they
to
have legal jargon in it.
Right.
It literally said, I told them at first, I was like, I'll just sign my own and give it to you. Why can't I do that? I was never paid. This is weird. I wish I would have brought it. It's at my office, but it says we can hold you accountable for any damages or anything we pretty much find. It's very just plain, like vague language. We can hold you accountable for anything that you did during your time in the church or after. That's why they want you to sign their resignation letter, to like scare you and stuff. And I told them, I'm like, I don't want to sign this. And Eddie's like, no, you have to. Well, thankfully, the head office in Korea accidentally sent it to my email. And then I sent it to like this, like the online attorney thing. And they asked me, like, were you ever paid by the church? And I was like, no, I was never paid. And then there's like, well, it's kind of weird that they're trying to make you sign a resignation letter because you don't need to. You were never even paid by the church. And then secondly, I had text message proof because I confronted the like kind of the person who's in charge of America. Her name is Constantine Ellen. I texted her. I said, I don't want to sign this resignation letter because you guys have legal jargon in it. And then thankfully she texted me back, said, no, this is not a legal document. We cannot hold this against you. I know it can. I think she just wanted to say that in the text message. So I screenshotted it. I sent it to like the online lawyer thing. And he says, well, first, you have text message proof, right? And then second, you were never a paid employee. So he's like, well, here's what you're going to do. Sign it, but then I want you to put on the bottom of your signature under the knowledge, time, date stamped, under the knowledge that this is not a legal document, so on and so forth, dated and everything. And then I gave it to him and then I left.
But in exchange for what? I mean, if you had come to me, I would have told you, don't sign it. There's no requirement to sign something. What are you getting in exchange? It's called consideration. So for instance, like a lot of times when you see this, you're signing an NDA because you're getting a severance. You're not even an employee, but what consideration are you getting? There's nothing. And I just want to talk to the audience here.
And it's funny because I should be paid for
attorneys.
this.
So I'm sorry, Mitch, say that again.
Oh, sorry. It's like most pastoral staff were paid. It's just because I had a good job, they didn't want to pay me. Oh, on top of that, I was told after I left my job to get unemployment, and then I was told I had to give that unemployment to the church, which I did, by the way, as well. So.
But you were never paid.
I know.
This is so bizarre. I tell my audience all the time, when we're dealing with all types of abuse, this is abuse, okay? You guys were abused. There's no doubt. I always tell people, if there's an SA, you know what that stands for, go to the police, all right? Make that report. A lot of times the church, that people go to the church and try to get something from them. I don't understand that, but it's not going to happen. You have to go to an outside agency. You never want to go to the church and tell them about themselves. They're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Why would they do anything? Something like this, you need to talk to an attorney. So if people are out there listening, go and talk to an attorney. There are options. If you have just come out, especially like within a couple months, you need to talk to an employment law attorney. A lot of attorneys will take cases on a contingency basis. That means that you're not paying the attorney. Now, are there times that you could? Yeah, but you want to know what those options are. And you can get a consultation pretty much for free just to talk to the attorney to find out what you can possibly what kind of case you may or may not have. But I really, and we'll talk after, we get off this, because a lot of this is unbelievable to me,
Yeah.
that people are not going to attorneys, because
It's hard.
this has to stop.
People think, attorney, even me, it's like attorney equals money that I don't have because the cult took it all from me. And even with my court stuff, like with my wife in the church right now, like I had I'm not even going to say he's even doing the best job. Most of them didn't want to take up anything that involved the cults. And then secondly, it was like I had to pay him like a lot of money up front that I didn't even have for him to just do a kind of job, right now. So that's the biggest thing, is like money. Honestly, when you leave these groups, you have no money to financially back yourself. And
Right.
that's why a lot of us don't even go to lawyers. It's like, I can't fight this group. This group loves taking people to court, like Michelle Cologne for years. She's been in court with them. Even Raymond, when you go to court with these groups, they try to keep you in court as long as they can. They try to drain your money just to keep you shutting up. And that's why nobody is going to lawyers after leaving this group. They have no money,
Yeah.
and they're like, I'm about to be in a legal battle with this cult that's going to probably take a
Right.
really long
And I
time.
get it.
Michelle
And
Cologne.
that's why you talk about it on podcasts, because that's the other option here.
Yeah.
It's to get that awareness going, so that people know. I mean, obviously that's the goal, is to let people know that this is happening. And there's a lot that people that are watching can compare. Maybe they weren't a part of this cult, but they were a part of another ministry. There are overlapping, there's overwhelming issues that I see that are going on in all types of these places, these organizations that call themselves churches or ministries. They're there. And so you want to be aware of that, so that you're protecting yourself and getting out. But there's also, for me, what stands out that's most incredulous is that they're trying to get you to sign something when there's nothing requiring you to sign something. So, I mean, that's weird that an attorney would, to me, based upon the information that you're telling me right here on the spot, to me, I'm like, let's back it up here. Why are you signing anything? I would be asking, where did I sign that I have to sign something?
Yeah.
What legal what contract are you referring to? What law? What statute? What rule? What case law do I have to sign that you can show me that I have to sign something? That's incredulous to me.
Okay.
So yeah, I hope people understand that. It's all about bullying tactics. That's what they're doing, and I get it.
It's a slap suit.
Right.
They love slap suits.
100%.
Yeah. But what were you going to say, Adam? Sorry.
I was just saying, Michelle Cologne, she was one of the original members that actually spoke out and had a website, and she's been in litigation for, 12 years?
10, I think. Yeah, 12 years. 12 years now, for sure.
What is she being sued for?
She was sued for defamation because she started calling out all the atrocities in the church. But I think now she's countersuing, and I don't know too much about her case, to be honest. I won't speak too much on it, but she's still in court with them, and I think it's the opposite way now. She's trying to counter, I believe.
She's countersuing.
I would like to mention something with her case. When she first got sued by the church, they had to first have evidence that it was her. So she was the first one to make an online website called Examining the World Messiah Church of God, where she started posting evidence about this group online, their tactics, their failed doomsday prophecy, the actual books and stuff, which all of it was legal. They didn't know who was doing it, but they had they hacked her account and found out it was her. The way they did it was, there was a member that was really good with like IT, but they used social tactics to be able to hack her. They started, because there was no information about the Whimscog, so they actually made their own website against their own church and made a blog and had a login and all that stuff so they can
To
get
collect
people's
information.
Yep. So then maybe a member reaches out on that site, and then now they know that member is looking up on X stuff. So Michelle, because she wanted to get information on the church, she logs in with her email and password. And then what the church did is because they had no security stuff on it, they took her password and email and IP address and all that, and then they plugged it into her account, and they found out Michelle Cologne was running the examining site. So they had somebody hack her to find that out and manipulate them by having them sign up for a so-called fake site against the Whimscog. Come to find out, they find it's her, so then they sue her. But what's funny is Raymond Gonzalez, the one who hacked her, left the church a year later and also sued the church for the NDA stuff and called it out and let everybody know about what that church did to find out who was Michelle Colon. And so then they dropped the case and they brought it back up, and they've just been in court with her ever since. But I think her last court case finally is either June or July of this year. So hopefully it's just over with her.
There's a lot of stuff, you guys. I mean, a lot of stuff with this, and it's very concerning.
But they do blood drives.
But they do blood drives. Yep.
Just like, the pastor who, they SA, some children, but you know what? They bring so many people to Christ,
Yeah.
They do.
They give food to the homeless as long as they get an award after.
Right.
I mean,
they have no interest in baptizing that homeless gentleman that you brought to the church, but
they'll take a picture of an award with him.
They what?
They'll take a picture of an award with him,
Right. It is absolutely amazing. I hope that people from this conversation, they can see just it's incredible that this is happening, because you have to, and we're being funny because you have to, you guys probably know this on your channel. You have to laugh at this stuff, because if you don't, you're going to go absolutely insane.
Yeah, definitely.
It's absolutely insanity to think that this is happening now in 2026 or even in the last decade, but it is. And then what we see a lot of times, which, obviously from what you just shared, I didn't know about that lawsuit, but they silence people that leave, that speak up. And that's happening all across the board in all these podcasts that we talk about with that people leave these cults and then they speak up, and then they, what you were talking about too, they have media, the propaganda, they'll make their own media and their own statements about people. But it's really interesting because we see this all the time when people like you or whoever is coming out against a ministry, then they say, why didn't you go one-on-one and Matthew 18 it and talk about that? But no, they don't have to do that, right? It's just like you guys were talking about how, you better give us all the adulation and all the respect, but they don't have respect for anybody else. And it's very similar. Go ahead, Adam.
If I could speak to that, I've given them the benefit of the doubt. I have asked my leader in Salt Lake City, hey, let's go to lunch. Let's talk about this. If I'm wrong, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be hurting the true church. I don't want to be hurting the true God. I don't want to be taking members out because I'm a threat, right? Let's go to lunch. Let's talk about this, right? One-on-one, right? Ignored. I asked other leaders, hey, let's go to lunch. I'll buy. Let's go to lunch and talk about this. Let's duke it out. Let's figure this out. They don't want to.
They're not interested.
I asked, let me go into the church. We'll put our arms down, right? We'll put our weapons away. Let me just go into the church and have all the members there, and let's talk about this. Let me bring up the 3 missing chapters, because they're like, we don't have anything to hide. We're not holding people, hostage. We're not controlling people. Okay, let me come to the church and we'll do a forum and let's talk it out. Let's work this out among the members so they have all the information and they can do what they want with it. If they want to continue, great, I'll leave. If they don't, let them leave. Of course, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. I went to the organization and stood outside with a sign. Let's talk, right? Research isn't sin. We still love you, right? Leaving Whimscog does not mean leaving God. Love doesn't require isolation. These signs. I went live asking for them to have a conversation. I spoke to people there asking for a conversation. Hey, we're out on the curb. Come talk to us. If we're wrong and it's your job as a Christian to come bring us to Christ and have conversation with us, come out and talk to us. You know what they did? They closed the blinds and locked the doors.
Yep.
So,
I was there with Adam at this protest.
He was.
Outreach. I'll call it an outreach because that's really what it was.
It was an outreach. There wasn't
Which
a protest.
location was it?
Yeah.
Salt Lake City. I'll send you the video, but
yeah,
we wanted a conversation. So, to the members who are like, why didn't you just go to the one-on-one? Why didn't you? I tried. I reached out to people. I made the effort to go and actually ask for conversation, to have these conversations, these hard conversations. No one wants to. They're not interested in it. They're not. And so to those who are thinking that, I tried. And it's like, okay, well, what else do you want me to do? Just sit on my hands and just wait for them to magically just change? No.
Right. So you guys, we might, have another one of these, but let me just do this because we're at the 2-hour mark. each of you. So Adam, go first. How did you wake up and get out of this? Because I just want to remind you what you were talking about. You said that you did see that piece, that video that Mike Winger had done on this cult, and you, Adam, you were thinking that he's going to go to hell
Oh,
because
yeah.
of what he was saying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. Any of the members that I saw that were critical of the Whimscog, I hated them. Like Jordan from Great Light Studios. He was a very big podcaster that did a lot of
I'm sorry?
interviews. His name's Jordan Hatfield. His channel is Great Light Studios. Is a very big, like ex Whimscog channel
Okay.
before any of ours even existed. Years before any of ours even existed.
He wasn't even a part of it.
He wasn't even a part of it. He
Yeah.
just allowed the platform for people to come on and speak about their stories. And I remember seeing the videos popping up because obviously the algorithm, you know, when you look for Whimscog stuff, because they would make us subscribe and like every video, all of us. We had to subscribe to every channel, like every video, and try to watch as much of the video as possible.
Wait a minute, not the ones that are speaking against Whimscog.
No, the propaganda videos, because
Right.
they wanted to bury the negative ones.
Right.
And so they would make us subscribe, like, and watch and share and all this stuff to build up the algorithm. But anyway, but in doing so, obviously you get those that slip through the negative press. And I remember looking at them and just hating them and just saying, you're going to burn in hell. I can't wait till you're destroyed and you're just burning. And that was my heart, because that's what we were told. And that's how we just thought about it.
Yeah, they're evil. Demon
Yeah, they're evil. They deserve everything that's going to happen to them. They deserve to burn forever and ever. And Mike Winger, and that was just our mindset. We're taught so much hate. But now I'm like super grateful for Mike Winger, and I'm super grateful for anyone that speaks out. And I think they're amazing, beautiful people, and their stories are amazing. But anyway, how I left, right? I left because, long story short, there was the initial, like, I guess, spark, right? But sometimes a spark doesn't really make you leave. It just gets the ball rolling, right? The spark for me was finding out that there was 3 missing chapters. But I didn't research, and I didn't, you know, I had my cognitive dissonance, right? I was still batting for the church. I was still, all these red flags kept popping up, you know, and I started remembering things like I would tell people, you know, that I'd tell people at the door I was preaching to, actually, like, if it's 1% false and 99% true, what is it? Still false, right? And I would say all these different things that you know, because I thought I was 100% the truth. But then those things started coming back to eating me, you know, biting me in the butt. My own words came back to face me full force. And that started building up and building up and building up. And it came to the point where I couldn't lie anymore. I couldn't bring people into this, because this is a very active group, right? You can't just show up every now and then. It doesn't work that way. You're expected for your salvation to be there. And if you're not, they can smell it from a mile away that you're starting to doubt, and you're starting to slowly, you know, fizzle out.
Away.
Yeah. And so for me to keep my status and not be noticed by the people and being, you know, outcasted, which was my fear, was being outcasted by them, because I had the gangrene, I had the ick, you know, and they didn't want to spread it. I had to keep face and keep doing the same stuff and keep preaching and doing all the same stuff when I was dying inside. It felt like my insides were literally just disintegrating. I was preaching to people, but I was like, in my head, I was like, please don't believe this. Please
world's
run.
falling apart. Really.
Yeah, please run. Please run. As I was preaching to them, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was right. I knew this was wrong, but I didn't know what was right. And I had to keep appearances. And so in my head, as I was preaching to people, I'm like, please run, please run, please run. And then it came to the point where my wife left before I did. And they were slowly starting to, like, really try to put me in get me back into the church more and more. So my wife and kids were gone out of the church. And so they wanted me to be more active, because they teach, like, well, if you're more active, right, God is going to save your unbelieving family, right? So for maybe people who have family members in there, the reason why they don't talk to you and they don't really spend time with you, it's not because they don't love you. It's because they're taught that the more you do for the church, the more they do for God, the more likelihood you'll be saved and come into the church and that kind of thing. So it's very deceptive and very evil. And so that started happening to me again. And I had to make a choice where I was like, okay, clearly all these things are wrong. There's this mountain of evidence ahead of me of just completely destroying the narrative that they've instilled in my mind for 10 years. And it came to the point where I was like, when is enough enough? and that's something that everybody unfortunately has a different threshold. But for me, my threshold was I sat with the overseer before I left. I sat with the overseer for a month, and it was like every Wednesday we studied for a couple hours, and I was asking him biblical questions because I was like, okay, I know there's a lot of things that are wrong, right, with how the church functions. There's a lot of deception, manipulation, but is it biblical, right? Because that was the only thing I cared about, right? Is it biblical, right? I can put all that stuff, I can bury it as long as I can see that it's biblical. And I started reading, as they were doing sermons, they would just pick and choose, but I started reading around the verses, the actual chapter, the context, and I started seeing some flaws. And so I started pointing them out to the missionary overseer, and he couldn't answer my questions. And then that was the last thing where I was like, okay, he can't answer these questions. It's not biblical. I'm done in this place. And then that's what started my journey of coming out and making a YouTube channel. But the last thing that was really the nail in the coffin for me was when he couldn't answer my questions biblically, he resorted to emotional blackmail, where he was like, hey, if you leave, your family's doomed. Your wife, your kids, basically saying they're going to go to hell if I leave, because if I leave, how are they going to come back? How are they going to come back to father, mother's great, whatever, and that to me was the last straw. I'm like, okay, so you can't beat me biblically. So you're resorting to emotionally blackmail. Everything I heard about you, it's true. And that was the last straw for me.
What about you, Mitch?
Wow. Yeah, that, like Adam said, it's a spark, and I think really some cults are so smart on how they operate. Like if some cult experts and stuff do interventions. These cults, they already got it down to where if you do an intervention, that might be the worst thing for a person. It's going to suck them in more, because when you first come into the group, you're taught if people are persecuting you, it's because you're God's child. If you're getting persecuted, it really shows that Satan's really against you because God really loves you. So when you do interventions or whatever stuff like that, it sucks people in. They might be in 5-10 years extra. So I always tell people, like, if your family are in a cult, be supportive, ask smart questions that don't feel like they're going to be triggering the person, and support them until that day that spark hits, because it's going to take a spark, honestly, and it sucks. These Korean cults are really smart with this. I just look at my overseer, he sat down, a cult expert. They sat down, they pretty much kidnapped him, took his passport away and stuff like that. And it was really hard for him.
Recently?
No, this was when he first came in, with a cult expert. And these are good experts, I'm not going to lie, but I think they didn't know what they were dealing with when this cult came around, because it was in its like early stages in America. Parents did an intervention, paid money for this guy to come out, and they pretty much locked him in a hotel room, just trying to get him to leave the church. But he never did, because it's pre-instilled in our minds: persecution equals we're God's children. This shows that we are God's people because we're getting persecuted, because the church already told us we're going to get persecuted.
Right.
So it only helps their
It
narrative more.
strengthens it.
So
It
that's why I
does.
say we always got to just use smart questions when talking to family and support them. But for me, like Adam said, it was a spark, and I was full fledged. I didn't have a single doubt when I was in. It was honestly because I got to go to Africa to preach also for this church, and it was really right when I got back from Africa, I became pastoral staff, and right when I moved into the church, I started seeing all like crazy stuff. The money thing happened. I never had this happen to me, and I was so shocked by the distrust of my overseer in me with money. I was shocked. And then also them telling me that my wife should be the one managing my finances when she just came from Korea. She doesn't, I've been managing my finances fine since I was in the military college. I'm like, why does she need to manage it now? We're doing fine.
It's
So all,
control. It's
yeah,
all
all this money stuff, and you're right. It's like a curtain. I saw it closing in, and they admit it. They say many pastoral staff will fall away, and oh, it's true. My theological class of 20, about most of them fell away. About five of us became pastoral staff, and then out of the pastoral staff, three of them probably are still in right now, and it's because of the control. When I became pastoral staff, it's like, you should get rid of your car. Oh, you shouldn't have kids. You should get snipped. And then it's like, oh, give us all your money. So I'm like, wow. And I'm in an arranged marriage. So I was like, this is how they keep the pastoral staff in. They have no escape because you took their car and money. So if they leave with nothing. They have no money, no vehicle to escape. And then also you have a Korean wife who the Koreans are super faithful. If you leave and you have a Korean wife, 90% chance it's going to end in a divorce. For sure. 100%. So I saw everything closing in, and then the finances and everything, and then the blackmail. And then when the blackmail happened, it gave me the chance. I'm looking online, but I was still too scared to look up the church. So what did I do? I started looking up Shincheonji, Jehovah Witnesses, other cults, and I saw the similarities. And then finally, even though I hated seeing the people's face, like Jordan Hatfield with Great Light Studios, or Edgar, or Adam's video, I'm like, ugh. I watched them anyway. So, and soon I was like, oh my gosh, it's true. Everything they're saying on these channels are true. I don't look at these people as demon possessed or evil anymore. And then I start reaching out to these people. So Adam's one of the first people. I was still pastoral staff, hiding in my car on the phone with Adam,
Oh my
talking to
gosh.
him. Because I'm like, dude, you have my same overseer. And it was just crazy. I remember watching Adam's interview on my work desk doing like video editing for the church. And my overseer comes in, he's like, I'm gonna be busy. I'm like, why? He's like, somebody I really loved and cared about left the church. And it was funny. I knew who he was talking about. He was talking
Was
about
it
Adam. And
Adam?
I'm literally watching the video of Adam's interview online on my phone. I'm like, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. So after
Not
that,
really.
I was in the church working with my headphone in, saying God bless you to brothers and sisters in one way, but then listening to what they would call slander in my one ear, the videos against the church, the
Right.
testimonies. And that was my only peace in the church. Like Adam said, it felt like your world's just collapsing. I felt like I was imprisoned in my mind. If I didn't have a wife, I would have packed up and left. I would have literally got up, not say I would have just left. But because I had a wife and I was hoping I could get her out, which I knew was nearly impossible because she was Korean, I tried. So that's why it took me like 2 years to leave the church. It took me that long. And dealing with this, and like, do you know how hard it is to not believe the crap that this church said and have to go up and preach a sermon in front of a congregation of 300
Right.
people, telling them this is the truth, thanks father and mother, then lead young adult groups and tell the younger adult groups, do Bible studies with them and how wonderful this church is. And then I'm expected to go out preaching every day on campuses and do group studies on colleges. It was so difficult. And it was so difficult to my mind that I just like, I can't do this anymore. I
Right.
remember pastoral staff, we have to fast for 3 days before, twice a year, we have to fast for 3 days. No food, no water. Still expected to go to work, all that stuff. I did it the first time. It was just nuts. The second time the Passover was coming around, I already got back from Korea, already knew I was going to be stepping down, and they were like, "Oh, we need to fast for 3 days." So my wife, they're the overseers, so it's just the overseers doing it, the overseer wife, the assistant overseer wife, and myself. These are only people that did the 3 day fast. And I just told them, "Yeah, I'm doing it," but I didn't. I was done with this church. I'm like, I'm not doing a 3 day fast. So when I'm off of work, I'm gonna go eat. I just ate McDonald's, in my car and talk to ex-members, and that was my relief. I was telling Adam the other day, man, I remember I was fasting and we were talking on the phone, and it was during the fasting thing, and I'm just smacking on a McDonald's where everybody's fasting away. I was just done. I couldn't put up with the
Right.
control and everything anymore, and it just got to the point. I'm like, I can't like I cannot live in a life of lies anymore. And also, that's where my relationship with my wife got bad, is because like when I had proof to show her the church was lying about me, or I spent a year getting these books, she wouldn't read the books. She was scared to read books. And I had proof that the church was spreading lies about me, and she wouldn't take my side. She said the church doesn't do that. I
Well,
said
right.
I have four firsthand witnesses, audios and text messages. She wouldn't see it. And at that point I'm like, we can't even be together. Like there's
Right.
like you will always choose the church over your husband. You will not even listen to my side. If the church tells you something, that's the way you think about me. I can tell you right now, she doesn't want to be in court. She just wants to go back home to Korea. But the church, I guarantee you right now, they're making her do this to put a bad image on me. That's exactly how this group works. I know they do that because I was a leader. I I did this to other people. You know what I mean? So I know their
Are you
playbook already.
divorced or are you?
We're going through it, and
Okay.
yeah, I'm working on some documentary work, and I think that's why they're trying to hold me up in court right now, because we're
They
doing
know
stuff
that
which
you're
is,
doing
yeah, and it's really difficult right now, because especially the documentary stuff, there's a lot of money put into it and a lot
that.
of
Mhm.
work, and it's not good. Like it's just messy, and there's too many continuances going on right now. So like April 15th or 14th is my next hearing. It's annoying. It's really annoying, and it's like so hard to prove either side, because it's just claims. There's like no evidence of violence or anything. It's just claimed. So it's hard because it's like, man, it's just even just going to court for that's just annoying. And I know it's just to smear my image. It's just what the church does. To be like, hey guys, look, Mitch, see, he was bad. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to his videos. Don't
Right.
listen to him. He's bad, guys. You know what I mean? So that's what they try to do.
Yep.
And that's what woke me up. Just small things. It takes that spark, and then that spark can light the wildfire. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
Yeah.
it starts out slow, but eventually it's just that spark in your heart. It hurts, but then it grows, and it grows
Yeah.
to the point where you can't conceal it. You have to leave. Like you're just like you can't hold it anymore.
Amen.
You finally
Thank
break
God.
out.
I'm sorry. There's just one more thing I have to ask because I've been thinking about it. And I'm sure people watching are thinking about this when they do watch it. This is being recorded, not live. But you guys are young men. So you were very young when you're in it. So what, if anything, did your family say, Adam?
Well, my family, it was a cult, and they called it what it was. Sent me anti-Whimscog material all the time, videos, articles, lawsuits, all the time. But again, once you're prepped, once you're already, that hook is in, it is extremely hard to get it out. And it's not about what the right questions are. It's about how to ask the question. So a lot of times people are like, well, what question should I ask? Honestly, there is no wrong questions, but there are ways to ask it, right? And my point being is, instead of, automatically coming to a conclusion like, hey, you're a cult, right? Like, you're a cult, you're a cult, you're a cult, you're this, you're that.
You can't do that. It's
you
very
can't do that.
similar to trauma
Yep.
informed when you're,
Because
because I've experienced doing that, as a prosecutor. Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
interjecting, but
No.
very, very similar to being trauma informed.
Yeah, and the thing is that's a trigger word. They're going to receive that as persecution,
Right.
which persecution in their mind means that they are in the right place. So the more you persecute them, the more you're going to solidify they're in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing that I have found is ask them to explain what they believe more. So the thing with cults is it's eisegesis, right? They pick and choose and they take context out of whatever comes out of their butt. The thing that I have found is if you actually ask them to explain more in detail how they came to that conclusion, that is what wakes them up, because then they have to think hard. Okay, they're not persecuting me. They're asking me questions about my belief. This is my prayer. This is what I love. This is what I want. But I don't know how to explain this. How do I get to this conclusion? Let me think. How do I get to this conclusion and explain this properly to my loved one who's asking it? Then they have to think really hard. And a lot of times they can't get to that conclusion because it was never a conclusion to be made. Unless you have that narrative, unless you have that transition or that example, whatever, because that's something that I've been trying to train parents. And because I get emails all the time from parents who have their kids sucked into this place.
Right.
And I say, first of all, don't persecute them. If anything, embrace them.
Yeah.
Because number one, if you don't embrace them and you persecute them, that communication line's gone.
Right.
You lost them.
It's going to be severed.
It's completely severed. But embrace them. And if you embrace them, number one, you keep your kid, right? Even though you have a different religion, different belief, whatever, you have to, it depends on what you want, right? If you want to be stubborn and lose the kid, that's up to you.
Right.
And that's just the reality. I'm not trying to be rash or anything.
Yeah.
That's just the reality, speaking from experience.
Yeah.
You have to accept them and embrace them, because at least you will have that communication. They won't see you as an enemy. And that will disrupt the church's narrative that they're already putting in their mind is, my parents, my siblings, my loved ones are demon possessed. And I know as soon as I talk to them about this, they're going to persecute me and hate me. Right. But then if you're like, oh, that's great. I love that for you. That's amazing. Like, God, grace of God, even though you don't mean it, it creates that connection still. It doesn't sever it. And it debunks their narrative. Like, wait, they said they were going to persecute me. They were going to hurt. You're going to try and stop me and this and that. Oh, no. The cult loses control.
100%.
And that's what I try to tell. And it's hard. It seems easy, but it's really hard in practice. But that is how you defeat it. And ask them more about their beliefs. Oh, you believe in unsung home. Well, where is that in the scripture? Oh, right. Well, or you ask, and I have this whole thing, like if anyone's interested, I have like this whole actually like PDF of like how to interact with these guys, how to interact with your son, with your daughter. and these questions of how you can ask. And it makes them think, because the more you make them think about these intricate details of how they came to the conclusion, you start seeing these little breaks. And then they start seeing these little breaks, because it's one thing to like try to explain it and connect these little things that can't be connected. And that's what I try to train parents in doing, is being, number one, not persecuting, no interventions, asking them to embrace it, and simply just gently planting little seeds and gently having unanswerable questions, undetectable, that kind of thing. Because again, there's no wrong question. It's just how you ask the question is the most important part.
I just want to interject in case somebody's like, well, what's an intervention? But, there's interventions of all types. But when it comes to cults, there are some people that do hire a cult expert. When you were just referring, Mitch, about, that's why I said, when did that happen? Because there was back in the day, I think in the 90s, where they would actually almost kidnap them. They would just lock them in a room. You can't do that. That's kidnapping. And I understand that cult experts do not do that anymore. But there are different, if that's your preference, if that's your what you claim to believe, that the intervention is not going to work. Very similar to my position on a third party investigation. I don't always believe that that's a good thing when we're dealing with these churches, because they're not typically always.
I do think, I would say, just really quick to interject really quick, I do think in some sense an intervention is needed, but I would say majority of the time it's going to harm more than it's going to help. But there are certain cases, especially with really, really extreme groups, where the person's life might be like physically in danger.
Yes.
Those need to happen.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
And the only way that's going to happen is if you don't have a severed relationship. So you have to continue the relationship with your family member, and so that you have that access. Because if you don't have that access, there's no way that this person's going to come to your house so that you can conduct the intervention. So you have to think about these things.
There should be I like to say, there should be a parent intervention, not a member's intervention.
That's the thing. That's what I want. That's what I emphasize. If you want your kid to be out, you need to do the work. I'm sorry, but there's no one else that can do it for you. So if you genuinely want your kid out, you have to do the work.
The research.
There's no other way.
Yeah. But I think the intervention's good with the parent, as in like, hey, I think they need to talk to somebody that's been in a cult, or they should talk to a cult expert. But like, I don't think they should set up an intervention with that member of the family. I think they need to talk to somebody, though, on how they, as a parent, can go through this in the best way possible to get their kid out without pretty much kidnapping them or against their work. Because again, there's that persecution complex within the group. If you do that, I can promise you, it's not going to work well. And you mentioned also to Adam, like, what did your parents think? How did they do it? Every parent's different. On my parents' end, it was good, like what they did. My dad and mom said they knew I was in a cult, but they never. I remember when I was baptized into the group, I literally called my mom immediately. Oh my gosh, I just got baptized. Second coming Christ has appeared. God the Mother's on the earth. Like, not even joking you. Like, I was so bold and just blunt with stuff. And she's like, whoa, all right. But they took it in stride. Like, my parents trusted me, and they had a feeling like I was gonna wake up eventually, and I did. And I actually told, me and my dad had this conversation the other day, and I said, thank you for not attacking it, because I told them if you would have attacked me or stuff, we probably would have been cut off, or I would have probably been in the group an extra 5 to 10 years before I woke up. He's like, yeah, I had a feeling. He's like, I don't think, because my dad knows I'm like stubborn sometimes. He's like, I know who you are. Like, you would have figured it out eventually. He's like, we didn't like you in there because, like, the separation, but they were already used to the separation because I was in the military, for a while. So they're just like, let Mitch run his course. He'll wake up eventually. And that's what happened.
And it's a real life comparison, because I was in 10 years. My wife was in 10 and a half years, because our parents did the opposite. Mitch was only in for 5. 6.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
but the problem with me is, since I was so sucked in, I went up in leadership quickly, which makes it worse. It's not good.
And you guys, there are other channels other than yourselves that talk about this particular cult, aren't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
One is Edgar. He's a really good friend of ours. It's Diffusing the Whimscog.
Okay.
He does a lot of former member interviews, and me and him, mine is like a lot of interviews, but mine's also like debunking their theology.
Okay.
So if there's any members or parents of members, like my channel, I would say 70% of it is actually debunking the theology of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mitch is kind of all over the place. He does a lot of different cults.
I infiltrate cults.
Yeah, he infiltrates cults.
So what do you mean? What do you mean?
Like he
Explain
joins
what
them.
that- You join a cult.
I'm in a couple of them right now. Shinshanji, I've been in for like 6 months.
But wait a minute, you've just told the world that you just gave yourself away.
No, it's fine. It's okay. Trust me, I know how they work. I'm almost done with them, so it doesn't matter. Like Eastern Lightning, I didn't talk about them until I was done. And you can't get this literature like online. It's impossible.
Right.
And you have to be a
go in.
leader. So yeah, I spent 6 months in their group. Like I said, this is the one that's really prevalent online, so it's very easy to get connected. You have to do an 8-day course, and then I was online like every day. And then they made me start being a host for the cult. But the good thing is, after when I was a host for this, so I had to like present their doctrine because it's the only way to work your way up. I took a list of all the people I studied with because I have them on Facebook Messenger, and immediately when I left, I just reached out to all of them, like letting them know this is what I was doing. Everything I said, do not listen to it. But we flew to their headquarters in New York because they fled China, they got asylum. But yeah, we went to their headquarters in New York, did undercover documentary work and stuff on them. So we're done with the documentary. It just needs like we're still editing and working on it. And then there's another South Korean cult. I don't really care, honestly. I'm ready to be done with this one. It's Shinshanji. It's the
That
other
one's
South
brutal.
Korean. Yeah. So I've been with them a long time, like online, and then we'll be visiting them soon in Korea. I won't say when, but and then there's also this one. You probably know this one, maybe. You know this guy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So do
I'm
you
taking
know?
my time with Scientology though because
Okay.
they're
Do you
kind
know
of
Aaron from that?
Aaron Levin Lewis.
I don't know his last name, but he has the
growing
channel
growing up in Scientology. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in connection with him actually about this group. But you gotta
Okay.
pay to play with this cult. And
No, I know.
I'm not really wanting to pay them right now.
No, I
So
know.
I'm focusing on East Asian cults for the most
Right.
part right
Okay,
now.
we're gonna have to talk because I think Aaron's here in I'm in Florida. I'm in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he's Clearwater. He's
He
pretty
is
close to
living
the
there. Yeah, I thought
headquarters.
so. So yeah, he's by the headquarters. Okay. But yeah, I have followed him for years. Not consistently, but I've watched quite a few of his videos because I've been interested in cults for a very long time. So
Hmm.
this isn't just
Yeah.
to my channel, but I've
I
been
love how he takes action. They're out there protesting.
yeah, they
Like
are.
obviously he just went to jail for a little
He did.
because of the
Yeah.
group. So, but I think he's almost done. I think he's out of court now finally. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
think I did see that probably on a short or something that he was out. I didn't watch it, but I saw something that he was out of jail. I was like, oh my goodness, what's
Yeah.
going on? Too much to watch. There's,
Mhm.
these cults give us a lot of
For sure.
content, but again, and I want people to leave with this is that this is being done to educate people. We're here to encourage people to come out of these places and yeah,
Yeah, I think Adam's
talking
channel
about it.
and also Egger's channel. No, Adam and Great Light Studios, their channel is really good. If you have a current member in or you're a family person, you need to know about this group and have information and how to talk to the family member, stuff like that. I think Great Light Studios and Adam's channel got like the best content for that. Edgar got a lot of good interviews, so Adam does too. They both got good interviews.
Yeah.
So if you want to know people's experiences, you can go to all of our channels, like testimony videos.
Okay.
But I think Adam is really good at helping, especially if people want to stay Christian when they leave. Because with these cults, a lot of people become
people
atheist
don't.
or agnostic, and I
Yeah.
think Adam does a great job of like helping people keep their faith. After leaving the group, through helping them understand the biblical things and why they were wrong biblically, so on and so forth. So like Adam, like props to you on that one because even though I'm a Christian, I took we all took our kind of like different routes with our channel and stuff. Mine's just trying to expose their from the inside these groups and stuff like that. But what Adam's doing is really good because I think he's leading people to Christ,
Of
after as
course.
well.
all of us have our own way of doing things, you know, through our personalities and the call that the Lord has on us to do what we're doing. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you, Adam, for reaching out. So I'm going to end this here. Again, thank you guys. I really, really appreciate Mitch and Adam, you joining me here today. And if we need to do this again, we will. So I'm going to end this, but please stay on.
Awesome.